One car's running, so I wonder and just get everybody in the single file and almost save ourselves from an incident in the early stages of this one by putting the safety car out.
Yeah, that moment down at Club caught people's attention, definitely, but I suspect maybe somebody spun and it looked perhaps like they were not going to get moving again. That's the only thing I can think of. Team Brit were the last car through, but they weren't massively detached from the back of the pack, so really not entirely sure what the cause of the safety car was, but it should hopefully be a fairly short pause in proceedings before we get racing once again. So
I'm looking through the order to see if anyone dramatically fell down the order relative to their starting position. And we've got a few teams that dropped 5 spots, but there's no one who dropped down a very, very, very long way.
Yeah, we'll put the feelers out and try and figure it out. I'm hoping it will just be a 1 lap safety car period, and we'll get the race underway again this time around. It gives everyone a chance, as you said though, just to catch their breath, calm themselves, remind themselves that this is a long old race and that you're not going to win it on the opening lap, that is for sure. There goes the 352 machine, 504 just behind them, and a couple of quick drivers together there actually. Oliver Cottam in 19th in the 506, the red and black car just ahead of the Dave the Frog car from AU Motorsport. So Oliver Cottam, TCR UK driver, Luke Cullen, one of the front runners in the Mazda X5 Championship, and then Josh Stanton in the BH Motorsport SCK car 504 behind. They've been down 2 or 3 miles an hour all weekend long in that 504 car, Declan McDonald was telling me this morning. They're hoping that they managed to figure out what it was. They were suspecting something like a fuel pickup issue, and they've got that rectified, they hope, for the race. So out through the final corners they come then. The safety car is in. I'm not quite sure why it was out in the first place, but anyway, we go racing once more, and immediately the battle is on at the front of the field. Matthew Wilson pushing along the race leader as they head towards the first turn, and James Matthews now trying to defend this race lead if he can. Or will they perhaps work together to break away, because that is something that we see in these cars. This slipstream is so huge, you can bump draft quite readily in these cars as well, so if they choose to, they could work together to try and escape a bit of that madness going on behind.
Indeed, it's a good idea to try and work together at this stage of the race. Let's see if Matthews and Wilson do that. Going through Chapel, first time after this safety car restart. This is lap number 3. Single file, and already this third lap looking a lot calmer than the first lap did. James Matthews continuing to lead for Scuderia Polo Rosso. JW Bird Motorsport sitting there in second place. Wilson maybe thinking about a move down into Stoke Corner. Decides to pop back into line as down the inside there. Very lovely move being put in there by one of the Silverlake cars, 398. That was the number 1 Silverlake car that started in 16th place, making a move through Stoke Corner. Also saw the SCK Motorsport entry. It was a touch out of shape through Stoke Corner, but managed to get it all under control and hold on to 3rd place there.
We didn't lose a car on the opening lap, but we lost a bit of a car on the opening lap. There was a bumper on the track, apparently, so that needed to be recovered. That was the cause of the safety car. So thank you for Robin Welch for feeding that information back to us. And car on the grass, that's Luke Cullen. The car blending in quite nicely with the relatively green grass down the Sir Lewis Hamilton straight. Is just ahead of him. There's some good side-by-side action here. 355 is in the midst of the battle. This is all going on towards the back end of the top 20. Emax Motorsports' Ryan Bensley, who won his first ever Civic Cup race a week or 2 ago up at Croft, and he's getting his elbows out there, going around the outside through Abbey Corner. Wherever you look in these early stages, there are side-by-side battles to be had, because drivers want to try and find, I always think in these long races anyway, they want to try and find their place in line. It's not necessarily about fighting right to the front. Of course, if you have aspirations of winning the race, you want to be in that lead pack, but if you're running outside of the top 10, just find a gap in the train where you're running a similar pace to the car behind, similar pace to the car ahead, and just relax into the opening stint. That inevitably takes a few laps just to sort everything out.
Does indeed. Side by side between Jolts Racing, you saw there, in the 370 and BPC tunings 375. Quite a few entries from BPC tuning in this race. 10 minutes has expired of this year's Silverlake C1 24 hours.
There is Josh Stanton. Mentioned he would go quickly. The blue and white car, he's cleared Luke Pullen all of the cotton on that lap. So Josh Stanton, we expected to be one of the faster drivers on the grid, living up to that billing at the moment, into 19th position now. And that will spur that team on. They said it's okay for a couple of laps, and then it seems to, on low fuel, it seems to run out of top end speed, which is why they were looking at the fuel system to make sure that it was picking everything up as it should do. So lead gap is next to nothing, but I suspect that is because Matt Wilson is quite happy for the time being to sit in the draft of James Matthews, because not only, Andrew, does that give you lap time and help you to pull away from the rest of the pack, helps you save fuel as well. Now, we don't have pit windows in a 24-hour race in the way that we would normally in the other C1 series races. You can pit whenever you want, as many times as you need to. You can save a couple of laps of fuel each stint. That makes a big, big difference this time tomorrow afternoon.
And it's that kind of length of race as well. I know from a bit of spec racing and single make racing I've done myself, you often don't see the rewards of that until the last 6 hours of the race. But if you know you can do it, you do start doing it from the very early stages of this race, of these races, side by side, running out of Stowe there. I'll catch who is involved. This is the third, fourth, fifth battle.
One of the cars in this group is the one minus a rear bumper, and I'm trying to figure out who it is. I think it might be the Emax car, potentially. It was a darker car. It was somewhere around Trojan. By the way, I'm plummeting down the order. I don't know what's going on with Freeman in the Trojan Motorsport car that dominated qualifying yesterday evening, but it's really struggling. But one of the cars in that secondary pack, if you like, third on back, is minus a rear bumper, and that is, I think, a legacy of the aggressive racing that we saw at the front of the field on lap 1.
Indeed. 449, which I don't think we've talked about yet. That's another one of the JW Bird Motorsport entries. Sam Roach, Joe Roach, Kieran Griffin and Nick Wingrove in that car this year. The race getting into a rhythm now. It's the 335 in the middle of your picture, the Ram Sport Racing with Rodo Partner Services. Meanwhile, second half of the order through very distinctive livery there. The WRC Developments with CB Auto Services 418. Played up some positions. We started 45th. Up 4 positions so far.
Quite a few movers and shakers in the early stages. That's the car that's missing the number. Who was that? 312, I think, isn't it? The Darky Taylor car. So that's the car that had essentially caused the safety car period. It wasn't for the car itself being stranded in an awkward place, but the rear bodywork had been torn loose. It's the fight for third then. Kyle Reid in third position at the moment, but right behind him still is Ollie Samways in the number 309 Fighting Torque car, and he's going to try and go around the outside here through Cobbs. In fact, he goes through it. I don't think Kyle Reid fought that too hard. That was sensible driving that from Kyle, running side by side through Cobbs corner, and these low-powered Citroen C1s would have killed their exit speed all the way steadily uphill into Maggots and Beckett's, and likely cost them another half a second minimum to the leaders. So Kyle was willing just to put his ego aside there, let Samways go, and perhaps this train will now go more quickly with the 309 car out in front.
Yeah, you'll see a little bit of bump drafting, I think, now across the next lap or so, as these drivers try to find out each other's pace and see who's the most effective driver being at the front of the... Ideally, in a way, if pound for pound, you want the fastest driver at the front of the group to then give the benefit of the tow to those behind, side by side for the lead. In fact, I think that's going to be a change for the lead. JW Bird Motorsport 347 going through past Scuderia Polo Rosso for the lead of the race.
Indeed so lead change. There was a bit of shuffling going on in the second order. There is the 312 car minus rear bumper, as we saw, but there we do have Matthew Wilson now out in front. Been a trying couple of seasons in TCR UK for the XVW Cup front runner, and he would love to get his 2023 season back on track with a good result here at the C124, and he has decided that he is quicker than James Matthews, and on current evidence I wouldn't argue with him because he's already gapped him by a couple of car lengths out of club, but the proof of the pudding, as they say, will be in the eating. Will the chasing pack now be able to reel them in ever so slightly? Then you've got Samways in third, fourth for Kyle Reid, fifth is Ollie Allwood now for AB Motorsport. Then you've got the 346 car. That was Finn, wasn't it, starting that machine? Max Finn. As they take a variety of lines through farm and into the braking zone at Village. 3 wide here for 4th position. And this is, well, I think that temporary truce that was called amongst this group of drivers very much coming to an end now. Ollie Allwood losing out there to Finn, and that might open the floodgates.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's one of those things where they've seen a lead change happen ahead. They've seen Wilson go to the front of the field and gone, right, we've had enough of being one by one, follow the leader right now. I want to get myself a little bit further up this order and not let the 347 get too much of an advantage in the early stages of this race. 3 wide as they go under the bridge along the Wellington Straight. Trojan Motorsports on the inside there, brave on the brakes, and they're going to get 2 positions for the price of 1. Very nicely done. That's a good sign for Freeman in the Trojan Motorsport. Going to start recovering over now over the next couple of laps.
So that's Ollie Allwood losing 2 spots in the end. I said that might open the floodgates when the 346 went up the inside of him at the loop, and it did. He lost a further 2, and now here comes the 312 Dark Taylor car, trying to come right round the outside. That is Tommy Field starting that car, I believe, and he is up a position there into 6th because as they came across the line, he was 9/100ths clear of the Trojan Motorsport car, and I think he completed that manoeuvre by the time they got into Cops Corner. Matt Wilson 6.5 tenths to the good. It's not an enormous lead by any stretch of the imagination, but in C1 terms it's what we'd call healthy in the early stages. They are 2.2 seconds then up the road from Samways in 3rd, who is detaching himself really from the battling going on behind. So Samways sort of the lone ranger now. What can he do on his own? Well, he just pumped in a personal best lap time that was 2 tenths slower than the race lead, about half a second quicker than Scuderia Polo Rosso in 2nd. Yeah,
it's just got to keep things nice and easy at the moment. Nice and loose, not get too tight behind the wheel of the 309. At this race come to them there. A couple of changes in position just to report. Looks like it's good news for the Silverlake 398 as Adam Preble has gained the position. Also really good lap for S&M Racing. It's the 501. Gained 4 positions last time round. They're up into the top 20.
Big dive at the inside from Max Finn on Kyle Reid. That was the 4th position. And so the Emax Motorsport car slid through, but then was slow on the exit. So Reid comes back at him into club. Absolutely wrestles the 503 car into the chicane and makes the move stick. So he gets back through into 4th then, with Finn back down into 5th place. The train of C1's making its way through. One of the Silverlake cars in that group as well. That's, well, there's 2 Silverlake cars quite close together. I think it's the 558 that's the highest placed of the 2. And that is the Alan Preble starting car. Then there's the slightly darker coloured Silverlake machine as well, which is another Preble in the 398. That being Gary Preble, sharing the car with Adam as well. So the Prebbles sort of splitting themselves across those cars. It's getting a bit physical now, isn't this, between Carl Reid and Max Finn, neither wanting to give way, and I think this is mutual frustration. They're battling, so they're losing time, so they battle harder, so they lose more time. It's just a vicious circle, and neither of them willing at the moment to accept that the other might just be faster.
And the other threat as well is I often find in these endurance races, when it's the machinery is very closely matched across the field, you, as a driver, you don't want to look like the weak links, because if you let one driver go through, the next driver behind's going to go, oh, well, I'm going to have a go at you as well. And before you know it, you've lost 5 or 6 positions.
Which might be about to happen to both of these two, actually, if they keep this up. Back through goes Max Finn. Kyle Reid back down into 5th place, tried to get an overlap through Luffield Corner. It sounded like we're complaining about this. We're absolutely not. This is fantastic racing. It's really, really good fun to watch. It's just losing them a bit of time, but they've got a long time to go, and there is a guarantee of more safety cars over the course of the 24 hours as well. So, in a way, if you lose a few seconds in this opening stint, it really isn't the end of the world. Across the line they go then. Change for 4th confirmed on the timing screen, but this battle pack here from Samways in 3rd stretches all the way back to John Ingram in 13th, so that's 11 cars covered by only a handful of seconds as they come across the line to complete their 6th lap of the race.
Really good response from James Matthews. He's just put in a 3-minute 2.224. He's back on the pace of Matthew Wilson, so is make sure that gap back to Samways stays It's currently 2.7 seconds, so above 2 seconds is what Matthews is doing there.
Beckett. I went and watched part of the nighttime practice session down there last night, and it's look, let's not get this mixed up. These cars are not fast by any means compared to some other cars that you'll see racing in 24-hour races, but the commitment levels required to get a good lap time out of them, because they're not very quick and they're not very powerful. It sequences of corners like Maggots and Beckett's, like Abbey, like Cox Corner, that really demonstrates how hard you've got to drive these cars. You've got to be on the limit every single lap, otherwise you're going to drop a couple of seconds a lap, and that's why over the course of 24 hours there's naturally a little bit of attrition that starts to creep in. Out of the curb there goes Ollie Sandways, who try as he might, just can't break away from this group, can he? Despite the fact that they're taking lumps out of each other behind him, he just can't quite break the toe, and he can't quite match the pace being set by the race leaders.
No, not at the moment. Caught sight of the Bianco Auto Developments car. Starts at 25th, did Paul Plant. It's up to 21st, side by side there. It's the 449 JW Bird Motorsport entry, another one of their entries. Joe Roach having a good run so far. Started 14th, has gone forward side by side as well. The Dark and Taylor car involved with SCK Motorsport. And now this is the concern I think I've got. This still very early stage of the race, but I think if there was a car that you would say that's the bottleneck of everybody behind, it is starting to look like it is the 503 SCK Motorsport entry driven by Kyle Reid. Just got to get his head down and try and get some fast sectors and laps in. Hold on, as you said, Andy, almost find his speed and position within the train.
Yeah, which is interesting, because 10 minutes ago it looked like he had the pace to get to the front of that group and maybe even pull away. But he got to the front, couldn't pull away, and then the others behind him started to lose patience and started racing him. So you always wonder how much of this is just Kyle Reid getting knocked out of his rhythm a little bit. Speaking of knocks, he did have that little touch on the opening lap with the JW Bird car. Clearly didn't affect Matthew Wilson, he's leading the way, but the Trojan car, maybe it's done something to the steering alignment. We'll have to find out down in the pit lane, but he's now under threat from Ollie Allwood, who's looking up the inside line. And Ollie Allwood will, if that's the Trojan car, losing out. So Ollie Allwood slipping through them now into 7th place and down to 8th for the pole sitters. So how concerned should we be then? I know we talk a lot about this as a long race, you've got to survive the opening stint, but Trojan would not have had dropping from 1st to 8th in the first 25 minutes in their game plan, would they? They won't be happy about this, I'm sure.
No. I think you've just got to let this first stint play out. As we say, the qualifying that we did was pretty much the perfect lap that we could get in one of these C1s in that scenario. So we know that the pace is still there in the car. We never know, they may already be playing the hard strategy game going long.
Actually, drop back in the pack, the further back in this queue, more fuel saving you can do, although they're on the attack now as Stephen gets up the inside of Ollie Allwood there, who's one of the hardest racers out there, having come through MX5 racing, as we've said. And Ollie Allwood, who won his championship with AB Motorsport, getting his elbows out there to make sure that Chris Freeman didn't get through. Was he successful? Yes, he was. And just behind them, actually, that looked as though there was more side-by-side action. One, the Silverlake and the second JW Bird cars doing battle. They're the 355 machine. That's Emax Motorsports' Ryan Bensley, the white and orange machine. As you catch a glimpse of the top two, JW Bird Motorsports, Scuderia, Polo Rosso, Matthew Wilson and James Matthews. So far, everything going to plan. They are 4.1 seconds up. Second place is 4.1 seconds up on the chasing pack. There's that side-by-side battle I mentioned. The Silverlake car losing out to the 449 machine. And just behind them, you've got Jolt Racing's John Ingram as well, as the leaders turn through Village and the Loop on this, the 8th lap of the race. And for these two, it's been a pretty serene Saturday afternoon drive, really. And James Matthews quite content, I think, to let Matthew Wilson lead the way. Matthew stretching the gap over the chasing pack, but not able to fuel save in quite the same way that James Matthews will behind him. So this will all come out in about an hour's time when they come in to make their first fuel stop. We don't expect tyre changes at every stop. although with the increase in track temperature this weekend over last year, you might see a few more front tyre changes in particular as they cycle through the pit stop. And that's another thing for the drivers to think about. It's not just about going 3 wide into Brooklands, there's a lot of strategy in this as well.
3-5 down the inside, that's the Ram Sport with Verido Partner Services car going through. This is all in the teens, this is around 15th place down. There's gains to be had at the moment, still side by side between the 449 and the 398 over 9th place, heading towards Copse Corner now. Superb scrap going on there. John Racing on the outside, 370, racing up against 398 from Silverlake.
Well, interesting info there from Rob Lewis, who we're not seeing on screen, but believe me, he's not just sat trackside enjoying the show, he's still feeding us information. We were mentioning tyres there, and apparently the talk among the teams is that they might have to change those front tyres at every single pit stop because of the temperature, and the track apparently proved to be more abrasive than they expected when we raced here a few months ago for the season opener, and that's the advantage that a lot of the teams have had, those who did that first round of the series anyway. They've raced on this exact circuit already for 4 hours at the start of the season. Yes, it was a lot cooler, but they still got a lot of data out of that and a lot of things learned, and they figured out that tyre management is going to be key. Well, let's wait and see if that does turn into something that wins or loses a race. If you end up having to change tyres every time, it'll take a little bit more time in the pit lane, isn't it? But yeah, that's definitely something the drivers will have to think about. And again, perhaps that's what Trojan Motorsport are thinking. There's no point going out there and racing hell for leather, trying desperately to stay in the lead group. Save fuel, save the car, save the tyres, save time in pit lane.
Be interesting to know, are we thinking that that's going to be tyres off, then let them sit to the side and cool for a bit and then bring them back? Because I can imagine if it is an abrasion concern, that you could probably bring the tyre temperature up quite a way, and as long as you don't completely shred the block surface, the tread block surface of the tyre, you could in theory put it back on. So we'll keep an eye on that one as the race goes on. That's was it the 437 going down the inside. You see tuning entry to Vale to go, leave some space. Oh, they nearly locked up there. Well, did lock up. I think that was another one of the BPC tuning entries actually, the 409. It was a mighty close moment. That just looked to me as if the 409 almost got suckered into just braking a little bit too late there. Almost realised, oh no, there's a corner coming up here. I better get on the brakes.
And on the shallower line as well, so you have to brake a little bit earlier naturally, and you maybe can't see your braking reference. The racing line is on the right-hand side of the road there, so if you've got a visual braking marker you're using, it's probably on the right-hand side of the road, and there was a car in the way, so easily done. And it's little moments like that that, especially the deeper into the race we go, can really change everything. You know, it's that little lapse of concentration as it starts to get dark over the next sort of 3 hours or so. Very easy to have a little miscalculation and end up ruining your race, perhaps ruining someone else's race as well. And it's why even the teams at the front of the field now know that they can't rest on their laurels one little bit. There is trouble lurking around every single corner.
So all those cars that were just on your screen, it's all around 40th place. There's the 409 the under attack from, is that the 418? Yes it is. It's the WRC development to the auto services car. The 389 on BPC Motorsport just behind. So approaching the bottom of the hour, in the first hour in this year's Silverlake C1 24 hours. Back with your leaders, Matthew Wilson and James Matthews, racing for JW Bird Motorsport and Scuderia Polo Rosso respectively. They're back into the 3-minute ones. Got to be personal best last time around for the race leader. 5.5 seconds is now there. Over Max Finn there. Third place, Emax Motorsport number 346.
Yeah, so the plan working perfectly at the moment. We've had a change for third then, haven't we? Sandway's down to fourth again now behind Finn. So Emax Motorsports moving up towards the pointy end. Here's a pretty lively battle. That's Oliver Cottam, I think, at the inside, and he's going to lean on the car to his left. Luke Pullen, ever the opportunist, is going to try and make that 3, maybe 4 wide actually, as they drop down into Vale. This is getting very busy indeed. This, by the way, is well, it's about 23rd place or so that they're battling for, I think. The 5.06 is Oliver Cottam. He's on the outside line now. The 3.56 on the inside was Rory Clark. So that explains it. You've got Rory Clark, who was known for not being backwards and coming forwards in one-make VW and mini racing. You've got the Oliver Cottam car, Cottam a touring car driver, Luke Pullen MX-5 racer. Lots of aggressive drivers in this particular grid, and then Anthony Wilds as well is in the Auto Farm car in this group as well. Sort of Mike Wilds, former British Formula 1 racer. Big dive on the inside of Abbey. That's not a place that you want to be trying to make those sort of moves. That was the Burton Power car, thankfully aborting that attempted pass. As into Village they go. Pullen late on the brakes. Can he find a way past Oliver Cottam now? These two have been together pretty much since the start of the race, actually. They started next to each other on the grid. They were chatting in the assembly area earlier on, and Oliver Cottam fends off the green and yellow C1 for the time being, or does he? Pullen trying to claw his way back around the outside. Almost looked like he was getting a bit of a side draft there as he came through Aintree Corner, and maybe now Oliver Cottam doing the same to him as they head down towards Brooklands. Wherever you go in this pack, Andrew, there is fun to be had.
Yeah, it could be a little bit more fun as they sort themselves out to go 2x2 into Brooklands. Quite a bit of wise driving for the 4.51. They've just backed out from making that 3 wide, but it's 3 wide now as they go through Lovefield. Trying to go around the outside there is the MLP Developments car.
Backed out of one 3 wide moment, only to get caught up in another 3 wide moment. There's no escape.
Oh, super stuff. Burton Power car moving past the 497 of Indigo Motorsport.
Who get the prize that no one wants, by the way, of being the first team to roll this weekend, because they went over in testing before they'd even got into the official sessions for the race. But the team did a great job of fixing that car up. It's not quite in showroom condition, but it's clearly still performing reasonably well.
Scottish team there, Alexander McEwen, Peter Cruikshank, Ross McEwen and Stephen Gray racing for them this year.
Luke Pullen now going backwards a little bit because that was Anthony Wilds, I think, going past him. Not quite sure how Luke ended up losing a place there. It looked like he was going to keep one when we first cut to this battle, but that's the way that these battles can chop and change. And I have to say, Anthony Wilds is flying. He's gone past Cottam now, just made that look very easy going onto the hanger straights. That's a car perhaps that underperformed in qualifying, but is now starting to move forwards. Right, I don't really want to drag our attention away from the on-track action. The good news is we've got 23 and a half hours of this to go. So let's give our voices a little rest and hand down for the first time within pit lane to the Mark Larkham of the C1 Endurance Series. Rob, what have you got for us?
Guys, I just wanted to remind you, this is actually the offending bumper that caused the first safety car from the Dark and Taylor car. Now, I just want to remind you about the golden rule, especially involving body panels in the C1 Racing Series. If you lose a bumper, if you lose a wing mirror, they will give you until the next pit stop to put a new one on. And as long as it's back on and secure and the car's looking reasonable, they'll send you back out. It's not a case of ripping it off and that's it for the rest of the 24-hour race. Robin has stated it's key that if you lose body panels, he doesn't want the cars rolling around the circuit, to put it bluntly, looking like sheds. He wants them in the presentable condition. So if you lose a body panel, you've got to get it on at the next stop. Dark and Taylor have got another one available, and this one is becoming their brand new spare. So this will sit out the back ready to go, and it's the same whether it's bumpers, wing mirrors, dare I say, even a door. But if any glass breaks during the 24 hours, they've got to come in straight away. So it's just a little bit of the technical regulations to run by you. So the Dark and Taylor guys will hopefully have their pit stop strategy sorted out so they can get this on without sparing too much time. Back to you.
Often known for having the aerodynamic qualities of a shed, but they don't want to look like sheds. He did say the word shed, everybody. I can hear you tapping away on the keyboards at home. Panic not, we haven't just got Rob in a little bit of trouble there. But yes, that's something that came in a few years ago, and it's a great rule actually, because you know, over 24 hours, incidents happen. You have moments. You might shed bits of bodywork here and there. it got to the point where lots of cars were driving around with no windscreens at all, and clearly that's a safety issue. It doesn't look great for the series, and so that rule came in a few years ago that you have to keep the car in good condition from a safety perspective as much as anything else. So Rob, as always, he sits there at night, I think, and reads the rule book for the C1 series on a daily basis. So any rules and regulations questions we have, or you have at home, do send them in to us, and we'll get Rob on the case.
It's a very important part of endurance racing, knowing your rules and regs. Many teams have tripped over the hazards of the rule book in years gone by.
I don't know where that car came from, but it appeared from a very wide moment at Beckett's. One of the SCK cars, I think that was. But, a moment. Speaking of a moment, this is going into Beckett's, and this is the 501 car off the track, SEM Racing. Who was in 501, I hear you all ask? Well, scrolling down the sizable entry
Lee Flinton, who's was in the start. That's a real shame because Lee was making some great progress.
Yeah.
Was up into the top 20, having started 26th, but it's rather gone for an unscheduled trip to the beach on this nice sunny day at Silverstone. And that's a strange one to be on the entry, well, going through Maggots and transitioning to Beckett's. I just wonder if they've gone maybe side by side with another car and been encouraged in there.
Well, we see a bit of squeezing, don't we? It's Maggots. It's really a one-line piece of racetrack, but of course, Copse. If you get a bad exit from Copse Corner, you get sort of swamped by everybody going down into Maggots. So entirely possible. Now we do see quite a lot of safety cars in C1 series. That is not a reflection upon driving standards at all. It's part of the ethos of the series that if a car stops on the track for whatever reason, they will try to get it back to the pit lane, especially in the early stage of the race. We don't want people falling out of the race completely because they have incidents and problems in the first hour or so. So often the safety car is thrown just so that we can recover the car and get it straight back to the pit lane. And if we do get a safety car now, more than half an hour in, we're approaching halfway probably through a fuel run. It wouldn't surprise me to see a few teams have to take a chance to win the top off on fuel, especially those who don't have great track position. We'll wait and see what race control choose to do.
And also the sheer physics of it. They say these are small cars, low powered. That is a gravel trap that's designed to catch Formula 1 cars going off it at that part of the world. One of them did a couple of years ago if you were down on Kvyat. So it's not great, but it's not the end of the world for SEM Racing. Put this one in the endurance cliche swear jar. It's a long race. To cycle their way back through once recovered. Safety car is out on circuit.
I forget now how many safety cars we had last year. I'm going to have to check that stat up, but we're already on 2 and we're not 40 minutes in, and here we go. So proof again that sometimes I know what I'm talking about. We are getting the 527 car heading for pit lane in fairly excitable fashion. So that's the Red Sky Racing car that was running in 19th place, and they are so far the only car to take advantage of the safety car coming out. So genius move or not, we probably won't know for another 23 hours or so, but that, I think, is the right thing to do. If you're down the order, Andrew, and you have a safety car period, top the car up with fuel. You're not going to lose a huge amount of track position. You have the track position to start with, but you can go longer, and you never know, hours down the line, that could really pay off.
And it puts you off cycle with the rest of the field. You don't necessarily have to do as much overtaking to get those positions back. If the thinking is that the drivers, the pack of cars that you've exited and then sat behind, they've all got to pit at some stage anyway. We will also see for the first time, because I'm aware that we might have some new people watching this race for the first time, the driver tag system and how that works in the C1, Silverlake C1 Racing Series. I love this system because I do a fair few of these 24-hour races where it's 4, 5, 6 drivers in a team, and it is normally very, very difficult to keep track of who's in the car, especially when it's 3 o'clock in the morning, all of that business. Not so here. Part of the pit routine for any team in any trip to the pit lane is they have to come to the stop, to a stop at the end of pit lane and make sure their RFID tag that all the drivers wear is logged by as... Oh, now that's looking a little bit more substantial than
this wasn't a strategy masterstroke, was it?
But once the 527 is ready to go back out of the circuit, even if it's the same driver still in the car, and for the record it was David Shepherd who started for the 527, they almost have to confirm with their RFID tag that it's still them in the car. Basically what it means, they need 2 green lights when they get to the end of a pit lane to return to the circuit. The normal green light that you have at the end of the pit lane in any race series, same with the support races earlier on today, but also the driver tag one to confirm that yes, it's been logged in the system, we know who you are, and you can return back out into the circuit.
Yes, and that makes commentators' lives so much easier. This car's going to get a lot of TV time, isn't it? It's a masterstroke, I think, in a world where everyone seems to want black, blue or red on their racing car. Painted a different colour completely, and it will always catch the camera op's eyes, and that's the Luke Pullen-driven ABC1 car running in 24th place. He won't thank me for reminding you all he's lost 3 places from where he started, but doesn't appear to have any damage on the car, which at this stage last year he did. So that race already going a little bit more smoothly than previously, and that car he shares with Tim Dorr, as he did last year, and also Cameron Hawes making his C1 Series debut. 40 minutes gone, 41 minutes gone now, and, well, we thought maybe the 527 car was pulling a bit of a strategic masterstroke. That's not the case, but this time around, will we perhaps see some people pulling into the pits? I think it's a bit of a no-brainer if you're down the order, but so far we really haven't seen anybody doing that. I don't think any of the cars in the back of the queue came in to make a pit stop. Incidentally, we were just mentioning that HUTAG system as the 501 car's recovery begins in earnest now down at Beckett. Tyre marks starting early in the corner and then heading off at a very strange trajectory onto the grass. Doesn't look natural, that, does it? It's not a natural angle, as they'd say in snooker, so I suspect maybe the driver didn't do that by themselves, but we'll wait and see. HUTAG system, if you want to know who's in the car, what the gaps are, what the positions are, who's done how many pit stops, and you don't trust us to tell you what's going on, can't say I blame you, head over to TSL Timing, www.tsl-timing.com, and from there you can pull up the live timing screen, exactly the information that we get in the box you can have at home. You can also look at the grids. I think there's usually an hourly bulletin that updates the race positions at the top of every hour, or at the end of each hour of the race, I should say. So past each hour, and the TSL Timing website, place to go. If you're on the go as well, you can keep track of what's going on. Then I think they have a mobile version as well. 501 out of the gravel, racing hopefully resuming shortly.
Now, given that the equipment was out there for Red Sky Racing, I think they've got a wheel alignment, or they have had a wheel alignment issue.
Right.
That's the only reason I can think of off the top of my head of, in the middle of the race, you would get the equipment for checking your wheel angles out. So maybe they've had a bit of impact engineering out there that needs de-engineering, putting back in line. I can understand why they've done that now then. If they think they've got a problem that could manifest itself into something more serious further on in the race, the protecting the car and making sure it's good for as much of the race as possible, yes, absolutely should do that. But from the racing element, you want to lose as less time to make that adjustment as possible under a safety car is absolutely when you do that. So hopefully they can make those repairs, if repairs are what needed, as quickly as possible. They won't lose too much time here, because at the moment, under the safety car, lap times down in the about a minute and 45 slower than the normal lap, around a 4:45 minute lap at the moment.
It's always difficult for a team this though, when you have problems early in a 24-hour race. Within the first hour, you drop a lap, you drop 2 laps. The cliche is that, well, it's early, you're only a couple of laps down, you could still get that back. You're not realistically going to get 2 laps back on the leader, perhaps. But that's a team that, I think it's fair to say, we're hopeful maybe of a top 10 or a top 15 by the end of the race. That's still perfectly achievable if you drop 2, 3, 4 laps at this stage, as long as you don't have any problems. And if that's going to make the car easier to drive, their drivers are going to be able to put in better lap times, they're less likely to make mistakes and fire themselves off the road altogether. So absolutely the right decision to make, to lose the time now, but gain it in the long run. So a reminder, Matthew Wilson and James Matthews lead the way. Now remember that nice little 6 or 7 lead that they built up? That of course has disappeared. What do you expect to see on the restart? It looks like no one's going to pit during the safety car period. Not a huge surprise, I suppose, at least for the front runners. Are we going to see Wilson and Matthews continue to work together now? Will they be able to continue to work together, or will the others cotton on to that now and try to interrupt that little teamwork that was going on to make sure that they escape with the race lead? Because it's a slightly different complexion now to that next group than it was 45 minutes ago.
Well, I think the other interesting aspects is just looking down and as we recoup what's happened in the last 10 minutes or so. You've got the Dark and Taylor car now up to third now. I think that's the first time that we've seen that so far in this race. So in a way, we don't know the pace of that car in clean air. We know that JW Bird Motorsports and Scuderia Polo Rosso were able to pull away from Max Finn and the Emax Motorsport car, but is that going to be the case against the 3-1-2? I think if I'm either Wilson or Matthews at the moment, it was working before, it was working fine. You carry on doing that same strategy, at least for the first lap, and then see, is the pace of the 3-1-2, we've got Tommy Field at the wheel for them at the moment. Are you getting that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 second gap again? If so, just carry on as you do it.
Tommy has come from 10th on the grid into 3rd. That's a good sign. Clearly he's got good racecraft, but as you said, will he be able to convert that into clean air pace? But we're about to find out, because the safety car is pulling back in again. So at the end of the 14th lap of racing, we are back racing again here at Silverstone, and it's Matthew Wilson who leads the way in the JW Bird Motorsport Citroen. And behind him, James Matthews in the Scuderia Polo Rosso car, 3rd for Dark and Taylor's Tommy Field, minus that rear bumper. Now, that car is likely to drop down the order at the first stop because they will have to reattach that rear bumper, and that naturally will take an extra few seconds to do so. And Emax Motorsports in 4th position, 5th for the second JW Bird car. So JW Bird represented well inside the top 5 with 2 cars. And then Trojan Motorsport, who we'd written off a few minutes ago, still inside the top half dozen. They're well and truly in contention still as they make their way single file through Beckett.
So at the moment it looks like Wilson and Matthews are holding line astern, and will look to build that gap up once again. Run through Chapel Curve here on lap number 15. Onto the Hanger Straight. This will be very telling, I think. See whether Wilson and Matthews keep going in their formation. Looks like they are going in their formation, but similarly now, behind them, Field, Finn, Roach, all of these drivers have worked their way up into the top 5 and are going to start working with one another.
Top 6 really started, well, top 2 actually making a break. It's working already, isn't it, this? As JW Bird and Scuderia Polo Rosso pull away. That was Trojan up the inside. They've gained 1 place since the restart. They tried to gain another, and it backfired on them because they were trying to find a way, I think, there past Emax Motorsport, and ended up handing a place back to the second JW Bird car. There's Ollie Samways. They both had stints inside the top 3 or 4, but they're at the back of that little group now as they make their way past the wing towards Abbey Corner. Lots of potential race winners in this group of cars. Looking further back, is there anyone that we expect to maybe make a little bit more forward progress? I think there are cars such as the 558 Silverlake car. They looked pretty rapid yesterday. Emax's 355. They both probably should be a little bit further up than they are. So watch for them to really try and use this restart as an opportunity to do so, as the 501 car is checked over down in the pit lane. The SEM racing team just checking the wheels on alignment. The tyres haven't been damaged by spinning across the curve of the tarmac. Clear the gravel out of places that gravel shouldn't be, and then send that car back on its way. It's already lost 2 laps. It will likely lose at least 1 more, I would think, before they can send it back out on track.
Just trying to establish as well, have we seen the Red Sky Racing car come back out of the pit lane? Whilst we do that, 3 wide down the Wellington Straight, it's the 339 that's on the inside, and is going to gain at least 1 position here, possibly 2. Good stuff for Has Been Racing. Very interesting story behind the Has Been Racing entry in this race. Steve Glynn, John Gladman, Mark Hopton and Mark McCaughlin. And if I'm right in saying this is Mark's first race in 20 years.
Wow.
used to race in Formula Renault back in the day, in the early 2000s. It's Team Boss at Greystone GT now. Again, it's one of the things that I love about this race. You've got so many different drivers of different experience levels and backgrounds. It's a very appealing level. And down the inside there goes the 504 to, at least for a half moment, retake the position away from Has Been Racing. That's the BH Motorsport entry. This is all around 16th place.
That's close through Beckett, so almost a little bit of contact there. That was as close to that as you can get, I think, without it actually happening. They're still side by side, those two cars, and they're really delaying each other now as they head out onto the Hangar Straight. Onto the front running group now, and again, it's happening again. Those top two working together. They pulled a second on that first full flying lap of the restart, and now everyone else gets a bit antsy behind and starts trying to fight to be the best of the rest. That was a big lunge there from Max Finn in the Emax Motorsports car to get into third place. It worked on the way into the corner, but whether he was able to keep that position on the exit, we'll have to wait and see. Drop down the hill into the Vale. There are the leading two, though. And so far, this is as textbook a start to the race as either of them could have hoped for, really. Matthews led a number of laps at the start before Matthew Wilson went through, and that has proven to be the combination has really worked, because they were taking a few tenths out of the rest per lap before. When Matthew got to the front, they were taking a second a lap, and it might be more this time around, because Trojan Motorsport are going 3 wide here with the Dark and Taylor car on the outside. On the inside comes Ollie Samways as well. They've got Emax in the middle, 3 wide through Abbey Corner. You can only get away with that in Citroen C1s, can't you? Just about they avoid touching, and around the outside of the wall there goes Ollie Allwood in the AB Motorsport car. This is fantastic racing, whichever way you look at it. People like to take the mickey out of the C1 series because the cars aren't very fast, but speed is not everything. This is good racing, whichever way you look at it.
Beautifully read there by the 375, Rob Smith at the wheel for BPC Tuning. That's the car with the flash of teal green on there. Just held back, knew there would be a bit of a kerfuffle off of Abbey Corner, and gained at least 2 positions there on the run into Village. 2 leaders continuing out front. JW Bird Motorsport will now have 2 cars in the top 3. It's been a very, very impressive run from Joe Roach, as there's a cone out of position. Where has that come from?
Well, I think it's
like being back in the car.
yeah, I think it's come from the assembly area, but how it's got there is a mystery. I couldn't tell you. But that's the silly kind of thing that could lead to another safety car. We've had a safety car because of a bumper on the track. A cone is not quite as bad, but they won't want it to stay there. Obviously, it could get stuck under the front of a car. That could cause all sorts of issues. So I don't understand where that came from or how it got there, but it's right on the racing line as well as they break into Beckett's corner, Brooklyn's corner.
Yeah, you don't. If you're in one of these cars, you do not want to be hitting that, because even though it's a fairly small cone, these are fairly small cars. If you hit that, could be radiator damage, that could be all sorts. So that will need to be addressed in due course. Really good pace from the leaders, though. Nearly a new fastest lap of the race from James Matthews, which at the moment is with James Matthews. It was the very first racing lap of the race, 3 minutes .607. For the first time in quite a while, we've seen another 3 minutes something. And it was a 3 minute .977 for Matthews. 3 seconds is now the gap. As is that a change?
That's a problem, is what that is, isn't it? Or is that a lapped car? It's a lapped car.
It's a 501 that's come back out.
It is. Had it go. Now, I saw a black car going slowly, and I immediately thought it was Emax Motorsport, but it's not. It's a livery car going an extra lap down. So that pit stop visit for possible sort of wheel alignment fixes has delayed by another lap now, so that's 3 laps down, I think, for that car. You asked a while ago whether we got the Red Sky Racing car out there, so we've actually got all 51 cars now. SEM Racing back out, and as we've just seen, the 501 car out there, the 527 also has rejoined the race. Top 2 then through Abbey Corner. Third place battle goes through. JW Bird now have 2 cars in the podium places. Their other car not making the progress I thought it would necessarily, Rory Clark, although as I say that, I think he's picked up another place on this lap, looking further back at the expense maybe of Anthony Wiles, but Rory Clark hasn't really moved forwards in the way I thought. And Oliver Cotton, with whom he was battling before, dropping down to 25th, so lots of shuffling outside of the top 20, as there has been inside the top 10 or so. And Trojan Motorsport picking their way slowly back towards the front. I'm not saying they're doing this at will, but it is almost suggesting, isn't it, that they really were just minding their P's and Q's in the first half an hour before now trying to pick their way forwards in the second half of the stint.
Just looking at lap times, some very good lap times coming in a moment from Alan Preble. The Silverlake Racing entry currently in 12th place. Lost a couple of positions off the start, but is now, similar to the Trojan car, starting to come on song. He's got some help ahead in the shape of the 398 stablemate, Adam Preble, driving the 398 at the moment for Silverlake. So keep an eye on those two, 11th and 12th. I think they'll just be off the back of this main pack. There they are, just coming through the back of shot now. Looking to close down the SEK Motorsport, BH Motorsport 503 of Kyle Reid. Getting to the end of the first hour then here at Silverstone on the Grand Prix circuit for the 2023 Silverlake C1 24 hours. Thank you for joining us here on the Brscc YouTube channel. Andy Mather and Andy McEwen on commentary duties for you at the moment.
Enjoying thoroughly this opening hour of racing, interrupted as it has been by a couple of safety cars. Racing action has been fantastic. See the change there for 21st place now, the 453 car gaining a position and more changing of positions up the road from them, and almost a little bit of leaning on each other as they turn through Maggots and Beckett's. 521 getting to the front of that group, that's Anthony Wiles. Now, Wiles has been one of the drivers of this stint for me, because that car I don't think started all that well, did it, 521? Scrolling down the
33rd he started.
There we go, and Anthony has just moved into 17th place, so Anthony Wiles, we all know where he got it from. His dad was a pretty handy peddler in his day, and Anthony just absolutely storming his way through the field in that Auto Farm car. Could well be in the top 15 within the next couple of laps. He is by far the biggest mover of the race so far.
You can see with him getting the rear end of the car out there through Stowe's. Clearly got a lot of confidence at the wheel of the 521 at the moment. Let's see if we can set about catching up to Has Been Racing. John Glavin is driving for Has Been Racing at the moment, the Amigo Motorsport prepared machine. And more scrapping on ahead. Is that a change for third place, or at least it was an attempt by Trojan Motorsport at retaking third spot, having started from pole position in this race, of course. Looking down the inside as they go into Village, and it's a good move on the brakes. We're going to have a bit of work as they go into the loop now. Advantage will be with Trojan Motorsport, but a switchback being attempted now by JW Bird Motorsports 449. Beautiful driving from Joe Roach, playing through the corners there to hold on to third place ultimately. But here comes Max Finn in the black and white number 346 run by Emax Motorsport. Dark and Taylor 346, that's the car with the missing rear bumper, and it looks like Trojan Motorsport might be getting a bit of help from Emax Motorsport behind there as they go into Brooklands. Up into third place go Trojan Motorsport, but still so close between this pack. I think it's 6 or 7 cars running through Luffield now. Brilliant racing.
And it's really the same 6 or 7 cars that have been battling since the drop of the green flag, aren't they? They've just not left each other alone at all. And Trojan have been in every single position, I think, within this group, and they've finally worked their way back to the front. And now it will be interesting to see what their clean air pace is, because again, look at the way those top two have scooted away. 4.5 seconds the gap is, which, well, 4.1 seconds between second and third position. So really looking good for Scuderia Polo Rosso and JW Bird Motorsport at the front of the pack. But with Trojan now in third, if they can unlock that crazy fast pace that they had in qualifying on low fuel yesterday evening, they might be able to close in on the leaders, and they're likely to bring the rest of the pack with them. So now is the time where we'll possibly find out how much of that qualifying pace was good fortune in getting a tow, and how much of it is the fact that Trojan genuinely are the fastest car out there. They're already starting, I'd say, to pull a couple of car heads, aren't they?
Yeah, it's throwing down a challenge to JW Bird Motorsport as to what they can do. just ahead as well. Well, there you can see it now confirmed on screen. We have had a change of lead. James Matthews has gone back to the head of the field for Scuderia Polo Rosso. Again, I think this could be tactical, perhaps. I say Wilson has led this race out for, say, a good 40 minutes or so, or more. It's been a return now of James Matthews to do the hard work at the front of the field. So if you're in JW Bird's position, I think in leading up the front, there may have been that thought of like, well, hang on a minute, we're helping potentially what could be a race rival save a load of fuel here. Let's switch the cars around, get some of that fuel saving for ourselves.
Quite possible, and that's the sort of IQ you need to do well in this sort of racing, ultimately. Just about going out there and driving quickly after all. Thinking about this game, this side-by-side action here through Baden Club as we tick into the second hour now of this Silverlake C1 Endurance Series Citroen Silverstone 24-hour race, and well, it's been impossible really to tear your eyes away from this. Look at the battling that we're still continuing to get up and down the order, whether it be within the top 10 or outside the top 30. There is some really terrific racing going on, and really looking forward to seeing how this goes through the rest of the race. We'll have live coverage until full live coverage until around 9 PM this evening, but we will continue to show some trackside action throughout the night. We'll be patching in, I think, to the circuit commentary team as well to talk you through the night, and we'll all be back again bright and early tomorrow to take you right the way through the day until 5:30 finish tomorrow afternoon. It is almost time, I think, for the first driver change within the commentary box. Myself and Andrew, in fact, taking a much needed break after lots of exciting racing that we've been calling throughout the day. Scott Woodwis at some point will be joined by Rob, we believe, in the pit lane. I don't really want to go, if I'm honest, because this has been such an entertaining opening hour. Your thoughts in summary then, quickly, Andrew, as to what we've seen so far?
It's just been brilliant. It's every single picture that we've had on screen, there's been side-by-side battles. There's also, I think, testament to the field, been some superb driving. If we think that, yes, we've had two safety cars, one of them was off a first lap, a rear bumper being dislodged and needing to be recovered by our hard-working marshals. Apart from that, we've only really seen one incident, and 51 cars going wheel to wheel for the last hour and 2 minutes. That is very impressive indeed, and long may it continue.
Hold that thought as they go 3 wide into Cox Corner, which I was told yesterday is flat out in these cars normally, not when you're 3 abreast, but Luke Pullen, that was picking up 2 positions, I think, at the inside. That gets him possibly back into the top 20s, finally 1 place higher than where he started. Let's get them through Maggots and Beckett's maybe before we do hand over to Scott Woodwis, because I sense action on the horizon here. Oh, big squeeze, everyone breathes in. Oliver Cottam in the middle of all of that again, as he has been in quite a few of these entertaining battles, and for the time being they've calmed down, sort of, and I think it's safe for us to step aside. So I will hand you over now into the very capable hands of Scott Woodwis, and I think has made his way down into the box as well. So we will both be back for the final hour of live broadcast this evening I should say, but for now enjoy what has been a very spectacular start to the race.
Well, that changeover wasn't quite quick as a Red Bull F1 pit stop, but still, very good evening to those who are watching on the C1 24-hour stream. Scott Woodwis here. Rob Lewis is just slotting himself into sleep alongside me, who has done quite a fine job on pit lane cars, but he gets a chance to have a little bit of a sit down momentarily, for at least for an hour or so, to enjoy essentially his favourite series of all, which is of course the C1 Racing Club. And it has been, what we've seen of it, a rather intriguing but quite an entertaining hour in terms of on-track action of what we've seen of it, and it's been quite magnificent to watch all the way through, at least seeing what Andy and Andrew have seen. So now we get to see how hour 2 develops, and of course this is the point where we start to get to one of the most all-important parts of the races, and that is first scheduled pit stops, which is where we get to go through now, that'll be quite intriguing to see how the order starts to change up. This is where we start to properly get into the endurance racing factor. These first pit stops will shake up the order a bit, but this first sort of hour has been a bit like the sprint, hour and a half. Then we get to see the proper start to see the strategies start to initially unfold and see where we're at. But I think for the first hour, I think it's been incredibly entertaining and very competitive all around.
Well, as you can see on the screen now, 4 cars dicing. You know, the action is not going to stop for the first few hours, but as expected, as predicted, maybe not as much as I first predicted, but we've got Scuderia, Polo Rosso and JW Bird. They've cleared off. They're 4 seconds ahead of the Trojan Motorsport car with Charlie Freeman in 3rd place. And that second JW Bird Motorsport car, that really is playing the tail end Charlie game there for the JW Bird team. And don't discount Emax as well. They're in 5th place, 3-4-6 with Max Finn at the wheel. I know he's keen. Glenn certainly will be very proud watching on in the pit lane, as I saw him earlier when the race started. But it's a beautiful evening here at Silverstone. We've had a great first hour. We've already had some action with the likes of Red Sky Racing and Sem Racing ended up in the pit lane for some various stops. And what Andy McEwen is about to let himself in for as he heads out onto our pit lane is he is potentially going to be there when the first of the scheduled stops comes around. So potentially in the next hour, if we get a little safety car, say after an hour and a half's racing, I think the pit lane might get busy, Scott. I think we might have to put Andy to work.
Yeah, I think certainly. It's if the full day of Coventry Sport race wasn't enough. Now we're sending him into one of the busiest parts of the race early on already. So, yeah, we treat him well, don't we, when it comes to Coventry. But no, I think in many cases, you can test, of course, having done it last year, of course, and having done plenty of C1 races. The pit lane, particularly in a race like this, I even walked on already, I can smell food cooking already, I can hear music playing. There's already, even in the first few laps of the race, the vibe is setting itself in, and particularly as well, what's even better in this one, we've got a fantastic, glorious late spring, early summer weather as well. I mean, in terms of a great spectacle, a great event, a great atmosphere in club racing at the moment, there's a lot going on, but in terms of a vibe, I'd be betting to think there's not a better vibe, at least in that pit lane, than any pit lane that's racing this weekend. We're right down there on the Silverstone Grand Prix. There is plenty going on. There's plenty of great setups, food cooking, music playing, laughs, all that sort of stuff. Maybe we aren't laughing, the ones that have to work on their cars over the first hour, but even so, it's already people are starting to really let their head out and enjoy themselves, even if this race is only about an hour and 7 minutes old.
It was quite amusing turning up into the Sem Racing garage with microphone ready to talk to someone, to witness 3 team members bashing the front bumper just to get all the gravel out. Well, I think they've got a B&Q warehouse worth in the garage now, so someone's garden's getting redone very shortly at the cost of Silverstone's architecture, I'm sure. But some of the racing going on, I caught the Silverlake car getting all agricultural on the track limits. I'm sure Greg Rose will be watching on with interest. With 2 cars that he's built for the team. But yes, as expected, Polo Rosso and JW Bird have cleared off into the distance. And those early predictions, Scott, I don't want to put the kibosh on it. We're an hour and 10 minutes in. It's starting to ring quite true, isn't it?
It is certainly very much so. But it's certainly one of those early stints for these two, where these drivers really are starting to put in a decent amount of work here. Now, this is now a little bit of, I think this is a bit of an early truce in terms of, look, I'm not going to fight you, I'm simply going to push you, let's see if we can pull away here. But they have to be careful, because the pack behind in 3rd isn't that far away, led by Trojan Motorsport at the moment. You can see the gap looks about sort of 3 seconds, but they're bringing a 6-car train trying to chase after them. So yes, these two are trying to work together a little bit, and they're kind of calling a temporary truce and saying, right, let's just try and pull away, build a gap and have our own race until the first set of pit stops come through. But they've got to be careful, because if they end up getting too caught up with each other, that 6-pack of cars behind them is only going to edge closer and closer and closer. So that's going to be quite intriguing to see how Trojan leads the charge all the way into Magnus Beckers and Chapel. They've got
making use of the curves there going to Magnus Beckers.
And why not? Because they're pushing as hard as they dare with these cars. And you see them, of course, they are effectively on. This is essentially kind of almost like road stand suspension, isn't it? So that's the reason why, of course, you see them, and they are literally leaning on their door handles through every single corner, which is one of the best things sights that you can see. You see them at full chat, and you see them in the pictures, and they're practically literally leaning almost at a 45-degree angle. They're that kind of far across, but that's because they're pushing the car so hard and they're pushing as fast as they can, and because they can, and because they have to keep the momentum up.
And the one thing that particularly Robin Welsh has developed with this Nankang tyre, a lot of the cars on the field, I mean, I will do one of my famous technical segments on it tomorrow and talk about the Nankang control tyre for this series, but essentially it is a shaved road tyre, and they shave them in profiles that basically allows you to utilise them a lot more and lean on them a bit more, because if you get a standard road tyre, you get the blocks start rubbing and ripping away from each other, whereas if they're shaved down, they work a lot better. They can still grip, but let the car move enough that that you're not going to get into trouble. If you had a track tyre on there with such a short wheelbase, it's just going to snap, rip, and then you're in all sorts of trouble there. But I'll tell you one thing that those front two are doing, they're working together in building that lead away. They've got that pack behind them, as we see on the screen there. Emax Motorsport car number 346 has had a fantastic first stint so far. But the front two, they are building that lead away. And they're also, if they're really clever about it, which they did this at Alton Park, they're using the slipstream. They're doing a bit of bump drafting as well, because we've seen it happen here. They have to be a bit careful with the nighttime fog lights on the front, but they're doing a bit of bump drafting, and potentially for the car behind, saving a bit of fuel. It's just a bit more efficient. And the thing is, it's just intelligent driving from those first two drivers. They know for a fact, right, we've both got the pace, we're going to work together, as you say, we're going to call a truce, work together, get away from the front pack, and we're just going to set our own pace in this race. And if they work together, they're not battling, they're not braking a bit harder to unset the driver behind, they're not doing any of that. So they're putting a little bit less work. It's those little 1% things. Yeah. The little 1%. That's the key in the early stages of this race and getting it right. And then what Andy McEwen is certainly going to find out for us when he's up and down the pit lane is those little 1% count in the pit stops. If you make a mistake in the pit stops, you scrub 30 seconds or 30 seconds extra on the pit stop, and you've got to make that up in a 2-hour stint. You're not going to do that. Not with how close it is.
And all add up as well. All the 1% all add up a little bit, and it's where, particularly in pit stops, if you lose that little edge, you lose kind of 10 seconds in one pit stop, you might lose 10 seconds in the next, and it adds up to kind of a lap or two that you possibly lost from other drivers because you've been losing time and not being as efficient. So that's the key thing to watch out for. We always like a bit of a side-by-side scrap even further down the order. This is 3, 3, 7 and 14. Burton Power and the 427 car, which is AF Racing. So Burton Power actually dropped a couple of spots because one of the AF Racing cars was down in 26th, 27th place. So Burton Power, it's more AF Racing have made the biggest jump because there's been a huge shuffle around from 20th place downwards. We've had the ABC1 car would be pulling up to 20th place. The 318 WRC Developments car with CB Auto Services cars dropped down to 21st, but the biggest shuffle around has been from 24th around to 27th, because we've had the AF Racing car, which is the number 427 machine with Luke Francis at the wheel. Now that car has actually leapt up 3 spots on one lap. It's got past the PWR Limited car, it's the Patrick Watts car 506 with Oliver Cotton at the wheel. It's then also got past the Rab Sport Racing with the Rodo Partner Services car with Ian Simmons. And on top of that, the one that's been the biggest loser out of that is Paul Plant in the 453 Bianco Auto Developments car. That's dropped 3 spots. So there's been a bit of a shuffle around, but the gainers have been AF and PWR. Losers have been Rab Sport and Bianco. But again, it doesn't matter. It's from 20th place downwards. These guys have raced up and going for the victory. It's brilliant.
Burton Power certainly with Ashley Davis at the wheel there. He's normally used to get the Mark II Escort past the sideways, so this is certainly very different, but it's great to see the Burton Power guys down there. They've got a new driver in there over from the UK Series this weekend, Colin French of Shine Automotive. If you do see them on YouTube, check them out, their YouTube channel. It's very, very entertaining. But I tell you what, I spoke to Oliver Cotton last night in the night practice. Now, for a guy that's used to TCR racing, he said, oh, this is something else, isn't it? He said, it's so different. But look at that gaggle of cars, Scott. They're going absolute hammer and tong. We're an hour and a quarter into this 24-hour race, but they are having no holds barred as well. The slipstream's going on. Everyone's bustling, moving together. The PWR car, get off, he says, as car number, is that 335, trying to move down the inside.
Certainly is, but the change around because Luke Pull is having that. Big scrap was also going on with 318. That's one of the WRC Developments cars. So those two are scrapping all the way at the moment over 20th and 21st position. But it's just bringing everyone else into the scrap. They had a small gap in there, but that gaggle is getting bigger and bigger. The Burton Power car really making some moves now. He's got past Martin Walsh, who's the ex-production GTI driver, and he's already having a monster at Luke Puddy. He's had a little sneak up the inside into the loop and going, come on, get on with it, put your foot down. He's got Martin Walsh now back to his inside. He knows all about front-wheel drives from his production GTI days, so he's certainly working well. And that car actually, it's a bit of a family affair in that car, the MLP Developments car, 451. So that car's got Martin and Maxwell, and there's also Anthony and Luke Hardman, another driver from the production GTI days. And that car looks particularly strong to move up the order if it can. But what's the curve? Oh, and a massive time up the inside. I was trying to pick out who that was, and that was number, I think it was 427, I think it was. Lee Francis and Paul Plant does not want to be stuck losing any more positions. He's up the inside of Oliver Cotton in the 507 car, up the inside. I mean, I know it's Patrick Watts, who must be thinking, oh, back in 1997 again with a bunch of super tourists, because they're racing like it's a super touring race from back in the 90s. It's brilliant stuff.
I think Oliver Cotton was forgetting that this This is. Oh no, that's 507. My apologies. So that is Martin Short.
Oh, Martin, it's either Morgan or Marcus Short, one of the two. Because obviously, because Martin will be, I'm sure, watching how his sons are getting on. But it's Morgan and Marcus Short.
My apologies.
So one of the two that is behind the wheel. Because all we have is an M Short. So, but leaning on the door handles again as they go side by side. And the two watching cars behind who are enjoying the spectacle. Looks like I think it's the Riverside performance car with Brown at the wheel, and the Midway Motorsport car with Nigel Rafter at the wheel. The Midway Motorsport car, I believe that's the one, it's 273, that's the car. Just tap up here to find it on the entry list here. That's the car which has a certain Mr. Anthony Reid in part of that driving strength. And we spoke to him last night, and he's a very nice chap, Mr. Reid.
Very nice chap. That's another one ticked off the bucket list to talk to a man that I saw fighting with Rickard Rydell for the 1998 British Touring Car title on BBC Grandstand as it was back in the day. As a Burton Power car pulls out now, that car in front that looks like it has been dressed in something from the 1980s. They've got all the fluorescent colours on it. That car wrapped at the circuit of the last round at Alton Park, car number 318. Now that's being driven by Chris Japs. We got a car off. That's car number 418. That's the other WRC Developments car.
Yeah, that's Jonathan Saylor, James Poulton, Ian Duggan, Matt Shears and Lewis Bar Machine. It's outside the top 30, but it's not on our timing screen there. That battle's still going to go on, but I fear as though, as they continue to go side by side, it's still the Burton Power car with Davies trying to squeeze his way past, if he can possibly, Chadwick. That's the 318 car, so 318 has their driving strength. Chadwick in question. If I can make sure I get it on the timing spot while we're list here. The Chadwick question is Chris Chadwick, so he's certainly having a fun time. I think it's one of those moments now, because that car's stuck, it's a case of each waiting imminently for when the safety car's going to drop, because I think it's one of those situations where that car's not going to get out without assistance. Unless they can cover it with double waved yellows, I think the C1 Silverlake C1 safety car might have to make another appearance into this second hour, as we see more defensive efforts. And I think the car that's making the biggest moves is that 427 car, I think, because he's made about 4 or 5 spots in one lap. It's fantastic. So this is the 427 car, which is AF Racing. So Luke Francis is showing that with Tom, Nils, Zachary,
I can't see waved yellows on that, so is that where the car is off?
Yeah, that's the. It looks though it was in the Magnus Beckett's complex in the gravel there. But I recognise that from other cars that have in previous years in various different championships that have gone off in that section.
Yeah, hopefully the Clarks don't have too much to do with it, especially with the loaded cars side by side. All this even touching going down the straight with the Burton Power car, one of the PWR cars, and is that?
It's both of them back. Both are in that mix. The 506 car and the 507 are in there too. Oliver Cotton and either Morgan and Marcus Short. One of the Shorts, whoever it is, the Short is leaning on the 335 car. That's the Rabsport Racing car with Ethan Simmons at the wheel. And it's great. And this is the great thing about this sort of this series and this race in particular. We talk about these fantastic battles, and this again. The best thing is this is for 20th place downwards. And the best thing is, no one cares it's for 20th place downwards. No. It's great, close racing. It's one of those series where, quite literally, and I love to say is when you get a series that's like this, doesn't matter where you are on the grid, at the front, in the middle, towards the back. In this series in particular, you have always got at least somebody to race with, and this lot must be having the absolute time of their life in only the second hour of a 24-hour race.
I'll tell you what, I'm having the time of my life sat here in the commentary box with you, Scott, watching these guys go hammer and tong. Go on, guys, give it some. As they go down into the Magnus and Beckett's complex, side by side, slot it in. Right, I'll go through here, I'll let you through here. Let's just get towards the front. But you look at this gaggle of cars on screen, this is great entertainment. Who needs Ant and Deck on a Saturday night? This is where it's at.
Saturday night's all right for C1 racing, never mind fighting. As they come down the straight once again. It's terrible. So we're on to our 25th lap now. That's a bit of a landmark lap, if you want to call it that. 25th lap now for the 2023 Silverlake C1 endurance race. We've gone past the hour mark, so I wanted to do a bit of an hourly update, sort of like a sort of Le Mans style sort of hourly update. But it was up the inside his shoes, though. It's 47 car. It's Lee Francis again. He will not stop making huge moves up the inside. He's now fighting his way around the outside to make that move stick as they come down the hill alongside Chris Chadwick. He slots in behind. Luke Puller must be thinking, I tried that at Silverstone last year and I made that stick, so what's your excuse? In fact, and actually going to get him back here saying, right, try this on for size. I'm going to officially nickname something which Luke, Andy McEwen called him last year when he made a brilliant move in one of the MX5 races. I officially nicknamed Luke Puller the opportunist, because he always goes for a move, and he will always throw it somewhere where plausible, throw it down the inside somewhere and make a big move and pick up 2 or 3 positions. He always seems to find the ways to make a pass somewhere. But I'm trying to count how many cars are in this gaggle. We've got about 10, 11, 12 cars in this gaggle.
Here we go.
Going side by side. And Cotton's not going to give it up easy. He's got You've got Martin Walsh to he's now inside going through the left-hander at Farm up towards the complex. He's got his teammate, which is M Short. It's either Morgan or Marcus. Getting that exciting, I can't even speak. Then just behind you've got Paul Plant in the mix as well. You've also got the Davies in the Burton Power car. He's going up the inside to get past Paul Plant.
Oh,
there's more contact, and round goes Cottam. And of all the people to tag him, I think unfortunately it was his teammate and also the innocent bystander, and that was Nigel Rata in the Midway Motorsport car. And it's now, unfortunately, Cottam's car stranded facing the wrong way on the exit of the loop. He's going to get it going again, yeah. But I'm afraid, I think don't need me to tell you up front, that's definitely going to be a visit to the pits to have that looked over. There might be a little bit of debris on track. It looked as though, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news for quite Patrick Watts Racing, but it looked as though potentially one of the cars that may have possibly tagged him was, of all the cars you don't want to be tagged by, your team.
Oh, that's going to be awkward in the garage. So if Andy's listening now in the pit lane or he's by a television screen, head down to the Patrick Watts garage because it might get a bit tasty, Andy, I tell you. Unfortunately, it looks like he has stopped on track, so whether it has damaged something a bit too much and he can't get going, I think this might just see the introduction of the Silverlake C1 safety car.
Yeah, I don't like the position of that car. That looks like it's more in the middle of the road rather than off to one side. I think Oliver Cottam's tried to recover it, but then realised there's either something that's gone wrong with that car throughout the contact, because he had an initial tag from somebody behind, and then the second contact when he got hit from the 373 car, and that was what happened there. So definitely unfortunate, because we never want to see that, of course, happen at all, by the looks of it. And we can only recall based on what we initially saw on that point. But
now we saw the car in the background there. Sorry to cut you in. We saw the car in the background there with a bit of damage on it. There we go. It's just coming on the screen there, coming into the complex now. If we have a look and see how bad that damage is, it could well be that Brscc car number 335 does have to, with Ethan Simmons at the wheel, does have to have a pull into the pits. That looks like the front wing has almost been peeled back like a tin of sardines.
Looks like it. That potentially maybe it played a part in that. But again, rather than me try and speculate too much, I'll let the Clark, of course, do their job, which they're doing right now. Absolutely right, because as we kind of figured would happen, safety car has been deployed. Now, what's intriguing here, Rob, this is right around first pit stop time. So, what's the betting that we get a mass invasion of the pit lane?
Well,
for several teams looking to make their first scheduled stops.
I reckon it's going to be about half and half. I don't know about you. Should we stick the sweepstake on now? Certainly, Ethan Simmons, if he's not going to get the meatball flag now, he's going to have to shortly, because that being peeled back like that isn't the most ideal thing. So I guess the Brscc team will certainly be getting some spares ready to take care of that. But it's kind of, so we're in a bit of an awe and we're enjoying the racing that's going on at the moment. It is absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately, that's what happens when you race just a little bit too hard, and people, they get the adrenaline rush, they get it inside them. Yes, I've got to go for that move. Well, unfortunately, it's potentially cost you, it's potentially cost someone else a 24-hour race. You know, there's 22 hours and 37 minutes to go in this race, as we just see the 507 Patrick Watts car coming to you with short of the wheel. And there we go. So the Marshal's doing a great job. A big shout out to our Orange Army there for moving Oliver Cotton's car out of the way. And I'm a bit gutted for Oliver Cotton. He was really looking forward to it. And unfortunately, due to a love tap, which is not really his fault, just hard pack racing, he's ended up coming a bit of a cropper. And there's the safety car out on circuit.
There's just something about Patrick Watts Racing at this race where they just can't get that much of a break, because the last couple of years when they've done it, they've had decent cars with really decent pace and very decent driver lineups, but it just seems that some of the luck just doesn't go their way, and it's really gutting. We're gutting for them, because I know that obviously Patrick and Amy, it's quite a great project that they have, Patrick Watts Racing and the whole team, and the great team to be part of the whole C1 paddock. It's just sometimes the luck of the draw just doesn't go their way, and I can imagine the frustration that they'll be feeling. I know they had some early issues early on in last year's race, so the fact they've also hit one of their cars to hit strife only an hour and a half in is quite gutting.
And I'll tell you who else will be gutted, the two front runners there, JW Bird Motorsport, Matt Wilson and Scuderia Polo Rosso. They are going to be absolutely gutted that the work they put in to get the cars at the front, there's the two Silverlake cars nearly having a bit of a kiss there. Now, I say the two Silverlake cars, so the car behind there in the slightly different livery has got Gary Preble at the wheel, nephew of Alan Preble. He's just making sure that he gives him a bit of a kiss on the way. Alan's got his arm out of the window, maybe trying to get some cold into the car, but there's the cars bunch up there behind the safety car. Maybe a few of them not quite getting the message over the radio that the safety car is out. But the car in third place, I tell you what, Charlie Freeman there at the wheel of the Trojan 421 car, he's going to be rubbing his hands together surely, because when that restart comes, he's going to be wanting to keep with those front two and get away with them.
He's been looking at them from a distance, trying to keep up with them, and with that 3-second gap that he had, thinking, I just either want a safety car or I want something to happen with them so I can try and close back in again. Now he's got that chance to close in, and if he's got any more pace left in it before they go to their first stops, he's going to try and utilise that and at least get some track position if he can, so he can possibly try and use that to his advantage when the first pit stops get underway. I'm certain we'll be rather imminently, because we're under the safety car. I guess the thing we're going to try and work out here is, out of these front running, let's say out of the top 10 drivers that we've got at the moment, which of those teams are going to gamble under the safety car and make that first pit stop now, rather than wait and possibly do it under racing speeds?
With car number 342, we've got our lovely cameraman there, Jeremy. Oh, there's Andy McEwen ready and waiting with the microphone to see what's going on. He's going to try and slip in there and see what's going on. Clearly an issue with the car, the driver gesticulating, not very happy at all. So potentially another victim of the first few hours of this race. Potentially, and it really is a proper endurance test, but it's pretty clear on that one.
Here's one thing I saw somebody actually was asking in the comments on YouTube, is that a lot of these drivers are putting their arms out there. Is that, I was asking, is that to signal something, or is that to kind of, is it a wave to the marshals? Is it to kind of keep themselves a bit cooler because the window's down? Well, any thoughts on that?
I'll need to check my briefing notes, but as someone that races as well, on a warm day like this, I would absolutely be sweating. So it wouldn't surprise me if at that opportune moment you can just get the window down, stick your arm out the window, and I'll tell you what, it is just heaven. It may not look like it, but those drivers will be feeling that now, thinking, oh, thank you, because the sweat that they've worked up in the first segment of this race, as we quite quickly nearly go to the first hour and a half into this race. The sun is setting at Silverstone for this 24-hour race. Plenty of action already, Scott. Just getting started.
It is just getting started. It was getting started for all the content, but there he is just observing what happened afterwards. He got that initial tap from somebody around at the loop, and then it's just the unfortunate contact, the unfortunate position where he was at 373, just had nowhere to go to try and avoid it. So hopefully that car is all good, but it seems that PWR already cut the watch racing to get that car back to something of full health. I think we've got one C1 I can see there, but it looks like you can see they've got the ribbon missing. Also, there's like a load of tape on the back of on the back window as well, which is quite intriguing. Speaking of tape, there's a 373 car. That's the 373 car that's the Midway Motorsport was involved. It's had some race tape put onto the front left corner where it had the unfortunate incident. Came back out there. Right, there's one pit caller who's taking the game. That's the Team Brit car that's coming in. Team Brit outside the top 30 at the moment, but Team Brit, it's great to have them back on the grid. What they do as a team is absolutely amazing in terms of the amount of effort they put in, particularly the drivers that they bring into this sort of system. So the Team Brit car 419, that's Steve Crompton, Asher Silver, Noah Cosby, and Paul Fullick. And of course, Team Brit having an exciting announcement this week. Of course, they're heading to the McLaren Trophy. You see 312 there. That's the car which has its rear bumper missing. 312, which is.
We can keep. It'll be interesting to see how they get on with the pit stops, because that car has really been on the pace. So I think what that team are doing, they're using that safety car to scrub off as much of the time as possible. They'll have that extra time needed. Maybe get a driver change, maybe get some fuel in it, or are they just using it as an opportunity to get the bumper back on, get the car back out there, and maybe just negate a few of that extra time that they've got to take?
Yeah, 312, that's the Dark Taylor car that's in the field. Graham Coombs with Ian Stinton, Matthew Maxton, Tommy Field. That's a four-car lineup, so they are probably, as I say, outside of the top 30 at the moment. If we look at their times, we can see exactly where they are now. 312, they're currently sat in. Possibly first? No, 312. I don't think 5th position, so actually that's one of the higher placed cars in the field.
Exactly.
So, we talk about the top 10 drivers that were coming in, so that's one of the first top 10 drivers coming in, making that initial stop, and you see even taking on fuel as well.
So they are making hay while the sun shines effectively if they can get that stop done. The only thing I'd be worried about here, so obviously we're at that key point an hour and a half into the race. Personally, I don't know what these tyres are going to do yet. It was very abrasive at round one. A lot of the cars were struggling to get the tyres through 2 stints. It's been a very hot track today, and we even saw in some of these sprint support races earlier on, they were even complaining about how the tyres were sort of degrading a lot quicker than they thought. So potentially this could come into play here as Jeremy going in there with a magnificent camera shot, just showing off those C1 Racing Club Nankang tyres. But yes, certainly Dark and Taylor getting very ready with the fuel going in. They've got the fuel man there. I mean, the car's looking absolutely pristine around the front. It's just a shame that the rear bumper's not there.
Yeah, I thought there was a bit of a groove on the inside, on that inside part, just off the where the tread is on that. Unless it's just how the tyre's worn as they're leaning on it as much as possible. So that's probably where that comes from. But intriguing that we've got the first half front runners, and I wonder if any other teams that are in that top 10 fight at least are going to look at that and think, should we pull the pin? Should we try and do it? It's going to be interesting to see how it affects their strategy, because of course everyone would have tried to plan their strategy out. Any teams that raced in the 4-hour back in March will have used that as basically, it's not just a fun race, but they've used it on the side as a data collection exercise. Right, how can we work out in terms of making pit stops, how long a stint's going to last for, how good can we be on the fuel, how good can we be on the tyres, who's better for a stint in which part of the race. Of course, that's a 4-hour race, but they're going to take that strategy and then multiply it by 6. It's a 24-hour race, obviously. So, but at least working out how they can work themselves out into those early stints and working out how they can work, how they perform when they're in that sort of sprint part of the race. Because this race never really calms down. It's pretty much everyone's flat out for 24 hours. It's not like endurance races of old where you had, back at Le Mans back in the 80s or so, or at points in the 70s, 80s or whatever, when you had, let's say, a team of 3 cars and one would go off and set the pace, and the other 2 would just sit back and try and hold off the rest of the other team cars from other manufacturers or other cars in the mix and be around them to try and be a nuisance or get in there to try and make it difficult for them. Every single driver goes out there and they push as hard as possible to make that happen. What is about to happen though in this race, speaking of about to happen, safety car has its lights out, which means that JW Bird and Matthew Wilson, now he becomes essentially the safety car de facto, and it's his decision to decide when he wants to pull the pin and actually get racing back on the way. And I think by the fact that everyone's starting to put the pace up a little bit more, I know these cars are low horsepower anyway, you can see the way they're moving through Brooklands and in the line together, he decided he's going to go early. Now he's brings the field out of left field, up through Woodcote and up to the green flag, and now we've just passed an hour and a half gone. This is the race back on, and what's going to be interesting here is what kind of a restart does he get, but also how does Scuderia Polo Rosso stay with him, and what can Trojan & Co do now they're right in amongst them. Is it going to be back to the tandem work of the top 2, or is now Trojan & Co going to think, right, game on, we're close back together again, let's see if we can tackle and make this a bigger league group. Into Cops, back into racing, and I think it's a case of, as you were before for JW Bird and Polo Rosso, back into tandem, and they're probably looking at a couple of laps thinking, see you Trojan, keep up.
Well, you can see that gap opening up already as they now all scream down towards the Maggots and Beckett's complex there, but using as much of the curb as possible. The second JW Bird car behind, followed by 5th place Emax Motorsport with Max Finn at the wheel, fighting talk as well. Ollie Sandways fighting through there in car number 309, don't discount them. And Rob Smith is up to 7th place in the BPC Motorsport car there. Alan Preble and Silverlake Racing in 8th. Gary Preble in the other Silverlake entry 9th, and AB Motorsport with Ollie Allwood at the wheel. That is your top 10 as the C1s come screaming down the back straight towards Stowe. That gap is just starting to open up a bit more, and I think JW Bird will be looking to work with Scuderia Polo Rosso as the 3rd place car with Charlie Freeman at the wheel, and the JW Bird car has got one right up his trumpet, so he's got to go a bit defensive even though he wants to go after those top 2.
He does. He's got to keep one eye on the 2 cars in front he wants to try and keep up with, but also for the pack behind he's going to be trying to keep back for the last hour and a half because they're right on his tail once again, being led by that second JW Bird car, the lead JW Bird car with Joe Roach at the wheel. So that's going to be interesting to see how that starts to play out when the safety happens to get back in racing speeds. So the top 10 as it sits then, JW Bird Motorsport with Matt Wilson at the wheel leads. James Matthews in second place for Scuderia Polo Rosso. He's about to get into the top 10. We're going to move here. Silverlake up into the SCKBH Motorsport. That is 458 car. And that's That's the 458 car, yeah. So that's Tony Cooper.
Tony Cooper.
With Michael Chapman and Jim Loughran. So that's going to be interesting to see if they can move into the top 10 if possible, because they're only just on the verge of that, because the SCK car is sat in 11th position. So at the moment then, it is JW Bird with Matt Wilson who leads. James Matthews for Scuderia Polo Rosso is in 2nd place. Chris Freeman, who is third for Trojan Motorsport, ahead of Joe Roach in the second of the two JW Bird cars. JW Bird having 2 cars in the top 4 early days, which is good. Max Finn in the Emax Motorsport 346 car with Finn. Fighting Talk is 6th on with Sam Wade in the wheel. 7th is the BBC Motorsport car with Rob Smith, you mentioned Rob. It's 8th for Silverlake Racing. 9th then for 8th for Silverlake Racing, Adam Rob in the wheel. Gary Trevor is 9th in the other Silverlake car, 398. At the moment in 10th it is AB Motorsport with Ollie Allwood. It's huge track for 11th place. It's just seen a change around because we've now got the Tony Cooper. Tony Cooper car up into 11th place now, ahead of the Carl Reed SCK car number 503, and then back past the pits after one lap back on the green flag. And fast after the race goes to James Matthews.
So there we go. I think that Trojan Motorsport car in 3rd just thought he could sneak into the back door of this battle with Scuderia Polo Rosso and JW Bird Motorsport, but unfortunately it's not had to happen because he's got that gaggle of about 5 cars behind him that are up his trumpet, so he's really fighting with his instincts. He wants to catch those 2 cars in front. Monster in the curbs there. I don't think that's the car that's taken the most curbs so far, so he's really working those tyres hard going into the Maggots Becker complex. But once again, it certainly looks like you've got Scuderia Polo Rosso, JW Bird working together up the front to build that gap. And considering the fact that the car that's hounding him in 3rd place is another JW Bird Motorsport car, he must be thinking, what can I do to get away from these cars? But certainly back underway and racing here, bump drafting each other down the straight. But I was very surprised there, Scott, in that first stint, not a lot of people visiting the pits, so a lot of the teams here possibly thinking, no, we could carry on. All these safety cars that are coming here are actually helping us save fuel, so they could potentially open those stints up, go into 2.5 hours, dare I say it, 2 hours 45. Certainly if we have any more safety cars, that could well be the case.
Certainly, and it's all about trying. The safety cars will help their fuel consumption, obviously, because they're going at speed, which means it may well be that they'll be able to extend those stints even further. Also, it will help with the tyres, because when they're not leaving on the door handles and tearing the life out of the tyres, it'd be easy for them doing slower laps because they can last just that couple of laps longer. Sometimes it can be those extra lap or two that you do that sometimes can make the difference when it pit stops and speed points where you can stretch the tyres and one more lap, maybe one more lap, another lap, and then hold that pace well. It's where we want to go. It's 503 trying to defend from 501 into the complex. That was Reed with 501, who's actually made some quick progress in the last one from the restart. 501, even that's a lapped car. In fact, that's the 501 car.
That's the Sem Racing car that's come in for some work.
Yeah, that one had some problems earlier on. Speaking of needing work, there's the car that's in the pit. That's the AF Racing car.
That is the. I think that is the Rabsport.
Rabsport, yes. Yes, you're right. Excuse my ignorance. So that's the Rabsport car that's in for in for some work. It's at least in for some kind of a stop. Yep. Because the Rabsport crew realise they've got to try and at least do something to rectify that front right wing. Yeah, whether or not they just peel it off, and if they can try and replace it, or if not, just I don't know if they can run it as is, can they? That looks a bit too tumultuous. So I think that's going to require a garage job, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the first technical segment. It wouldn't surprise me if they've had to dash out to the kitchen to get the tin opener to remove it off the car. But certainly they'll have to get the spare wing, get it on, get it nice and secure. The scrutineers up and down the pit lane will be looking at that and making sure that they go out not only in a safe manner, but as I said earlier on, and I wouldn't ever mean it to the detriment of any series, but realistically, I use it in one of my mannerisms. You don't want the cars going out there looking like sheds, just looking like they've got body panels flying off everywhere. They need to keep their silhouette, they need to keep that shape. And on top of that, really, it's safety. You want everything nice and secure on there. So, as this battle at the front still just will not, it's showing no signs of abating, but that gap from second to third has opened up to over half a second now, Scott. And with Matthews set to the fastest lap with a 3 minutes, 4:09. As these cars get a bit low on fuel, I think we're going to see the first car drop below the 3 minute mark.
The intriguing thing is that on the last lap, Chris Freeman was still about on the same pace as the two leaders. The last lap times for the top three, to give you an idea, with a 3 minutes .872 for Matt Wilson. James Matthews did a 3 minutes 1.027. Freeman did a 3 minutes 0.938. So he's on pace. He just needs to find a little bit more. He's got a tiny bit of clear air because he won't be getting as much turbulent air from the car in front as, say, James Matthews will be, where he's lodged right underneath the gearbox of the 347 car. As for Trojan, I think, as you talked about, he's just trying to focus on the two cars in front, but he's also keeping one eye behind on a rather feisty Joe Roach trying to pick his way through in fourth place to try and get two JW Bird cars into the top three positions. Whilst that lap is going on track, let's head down to Andy McKeown. He's found himself his first interviewee down a bit late, so let's see what Andy's found.
Well, down in the pit lane then, the sun's setting, the temperature's still really mild out here in the so a really pleasant evening this has turned into. I'm having a nice, relaxing time, but blokes to the next to me, you've had a hard hour and a half or so there. Ryan Bensley, fresh out of the car. I use the word fresh loosely. That looked fun.
I don't smell fresh though, do I?
I wasn't going to mention it.
Yeah, it's. I always enjoy this race. I come and do it every year. It's obviously a lot more relaxed, a bit different to the other racing that I do. It's still competitive though, super quick out there with a lot of the guys at the front. You know, they're really good drivers. So yeah, we come in. I say early. We come in, took advantage of the safety car. See how that strategy worked out for us later in the race.
You're the first driver we've had a chance to speak to so far, so we're all keen to know what it's like out there. Higher track temperatures than we expected. How's that affecting the car?
Yes, I tend to find with these cars that with the engines, as soon as they get hot, they tend to lose a bit of performance in a straight line. They're better sort of in the cooler hours of the night and early in the morning. The tyre temperatures are, as soon as you get the fronts too hot, they're very understeery. So yeah, it's a bit of a different beast to drive than the Civic, but it's still fun all the same.
Now, we've had quite a few safety cars there in the first part of the race. You guys have chosen to pit noticeably earlier than a lot, really taking advantage of that safety car. Was that always the plan?
Yeah, we thought we'd run a fairly aggressive strategy with that. They've got two other cars that they're perhaps running a more conservative strategy, maybe around the 2 hour mark. I'm not really too sure, but it kind of made sense to me because quite a lot of fuel went in. So, you know, hopefully it might stead us well for later in the race. It now means I've got less time. Maybe we'll see what happens.
I can't chat to you without mentioning the Civic Cup. Huge congratulations for Croft there. Like a good season for you, isn't it?
We're going to try. Just collect the points. We've finally got a bit of speed with that. That's also super competitive. It'd be good for us to have a Civic Cup team here. I think we'd do really well. But you know, well, we probably just want to be beating each other though. That'd be the trouble. So, but maybe next year, maybe we'll get the Prowlers lads out next year, get a team together and see what we can do. So yeah, just looking forward to the rest of the season. Maybe do a couple more of these races because these are good fun. It's like motorsport holiday, isn't it, coming here?
Absolutely, sounds like a plan. Ryan Benson, congratulations. I'll let you go and cool down and have a rest. Lots of interesting things going on down here. The 335 car we've just seen with that damage being repaired. For some reason, they chose to do an extra couple of laps before. Now that's a bit more expensive than they thought, although they are pushing it back out actually as we speak. So that car about to head back out on track. The other thing I've noticed, a lot of drivers came in during that last safety car to be greeted by no pit members at all, and they were shouting out there saying, "It's been an hour and 40, you said pit now." Of course, they're saving a lot of fuel out there on the safety car. So strategy sort of being generated on the fly, and the last person to know often is the driver.
Well, that's always helpful, isn't it, really? The last person to know what any driver, and they have pit bulls for that purpose as well. I guess you only put limited stuff on the pit bulls. Good to hear from Ryan Bensley though. Of course, he, as Andy mentioned, successful a couple of weekends ago at Croft and C1 Cup. It'd be good to have him also engaged in this race. And I think we've got driving from serious disciplines coming in, actually giving us a try and jumping in now. I'm back to the point in a second because this lot are at it again for 20th place downwards. It's now Paul Plant versus the 337 car once again. This is of Davies. So this is Plant versus Davies. They're in this bit of battle pack. There's the leading group as it goes through. There's that the second group of cars that's trying to start to bunch up, and they're just in the background there going through the complex into the arena section of the loop and then going to the back straight. As for the leaders, whilst that interview was going on, I noticed with the lap times, new fastest lap of the race being set by the race leader Matt Wilson. But if you look at the lap times also the cars behind, there's only about a 10-minute in terms of that's because they all set the very least personal best. It was, of course, Matthew Wilson was the best of all because it was also the new fastest lap of the race. And now there's a 4-car train developing here rather than 2. it has its moments where it breaks off into tandems, but they seem to be pretty close enough together to make it a quartet, and they're starting to try and pull some kind of a gap on 5th place backwards.
It does look like that, doesn't it, Scott? There's still that little minute gap between 2nd and 3rd, but Trojan Motorsport are really hanging in there, as we also see car 558 going through our shot there with Alan Preble at the wheel. He's fighting fit and keeping in 8th place, and I'll tell you what, he is part of that lead gaggle. So if you really want to look at the sort of wider angle of it, you've got these two in front, JW Bird and Scuderia Polo Rosso. Then you've got Trojan Motorsport, JW Bird. It's more or less the top 10 are on the same stretch of track going for this. That is your lead bunch going for it. And I'll tell you what, there'll be a few happy campers going into those first round of pit stops, because that top 10, they are very, very well bunched together.
Very competitive top 10, isn't it? In many cases, lots of top teams in there, lots of drivers and teams and drivers to be expected to be up there in the early stages at the very least. The teams that we're looking at as being in contention, of course, as you say, JW Bird, Polo Rosso, Emax, BPC in there. In fact, one of the cars that I'm tipping to do really well in this race, the BPC car, 375, Bob Smith, using all of his experience here as... Big moment, possible lead change here. Up the inside now looks James Matthews, who thought, right, I've had enough here. But look at the run that Chris Freeman's got. He's got the run on both of them, and he's going for the lead. He's going for not just for 2nd. He wants to lead into the C1 24-hour race into Stowe Corner, and he might well bring Joe Roach with him. So the whole top 4's changed in a matter of moments, because off of Magus Beckett and Chappell, it's now Trojan Motorsport with Freeman at the wheel. Now it's side by side between James Matthews and another of the JW Bird cars. It's now Joe Roach looking for 2nd place, round the outside into Vale, into Club. He can have the inside for the first part of Club. He goes up the inside to make it stick, and he goes through. So Joe Roach up into 2nd place now. He takes over the JW Bird car, and in a flash, it's almost a complete reversal of the top 4. It's now Trojan that leads. At the moment, it's the 449 JW Bird car in 2nd place. We've got the Chris Freeman Polo Rosso car fighting back, but starting that, Matt Wilson was 1st. In half a lap, he's gone to 4th.
And he's just down the inside of the 2nd JW Bird car. He must feel like he's dropped 20 quid and picked up 6pence, as the rest of the cars are now up their backside. They really want to join this huge this battle that's going on here, as the Matt Wilson again down the inside of the sister car, and we've got a bumper off the back. He's going to have to get that sorted. So unfortunately, there has been a bit of contact there, but they've got off a bit lightly. There was a bit of contact with the Emax Motorsport car with Max Finn out the wheel, and you've got Ollie Samways in 6th, BPC Motorsports Rob Smith in 7th place, Alan Preble in 8th, and Gary Preble in 9th. And they're all watching this going on in front of them, thinking, what are you lot doing? But as for that Trojan car, he timed that move perfectly, didn't we? I couldn't believe he had the stones to pull that into Stowe Corner, but credit where credit's due. You have to applaud that.
He had such a massive toe from the 3 cars in front. He took absolutely full advantage of that, and just slipped through past all 3 of them, stuck it down the inside of the stone and thought, right, I'm having the apex. If you want it, you have to come and take it back from me. He absolutely made that move stick. So the pole sitters back to the lead with it's now JW Bird in 2nd. It's a different car, as the car that was that's the Joe Roach car that was in the mix. That car now heading to pit lane. I'm certain that'll be at the very least take the rear bumper off and fix that. But also, who knows, whilst they're there, maybe a first pit stop. Maybe they might take advantage and go, right, let's fuel it, let's change what we need to, change the driver and get it sorted out. But Joe Roach with the opportunistic move, he essentially followed the lead of the Trojan car and thought, right, if we're going to open the door, I'm going straight past as well. He took full advantage of that, but in many cases, getting caught up in that little tangle just proved that he was getting not too racy, but he was getting right in the mix and really up for the fight to make it happen. This gaggle backwards, this is now for 12th position backwards, so that's the bottom of the top 10 as they go through. You get a sense that Tony Cooper in the other Silverlake car wants to join the fun. He's in 11th place. He's not that far away from the top 10. He's just creeping up onto the back of them. We see just in the mix in a second. There he is, in the foreground of the shot, chasing after the white and purple car, AB Motorsport, very capable team that runs mostly Mazda X5s. It was run by Ali Bray and his Nicky. And they've managed to adorn their team with plenty of experienced Mazda X5 drivers, including the likes of Tim Dorn, Ollie Orwood, and of course Stuart Simmons and Luke Pullen as well, just pulling them in from their MX-5 expertise to pull them in once again. They've done this race for a couple of years already, so they're quite well experienced in this one too. But you were pointing out the fact that Polo Rosso thinks, right, if I can't get past JW Bird, fresh target, let's go after Trojan.
Well, it's not as if it's not inconspicuous exactly, that Trojan car. Oh, track limits, boys, watch out, but he is right up his back.
He's not bothered about track limits right now, he's bothered about what's behind him rather than what's around him on the track.
Well, they've got that gap now to the third place car.
Here he comes.
And down the inside, that's a lovely little move, but I have a feeling that Trojan car is not going to let him get away with it that easy, although it did seem he made it a bit easier there. Perhaps he's thinking, you know what, he's a quick car, I'll work with him, do the same as we did with JW Bird, with the first JW Bird car. But I'll tell you one thing that I could probably guarantee: Nick Beaumont and Phil House are probably in the garage behind the sofa, not daring to look at the screen as what's happening to this Luke group here. Just, they're so desperate for that win to come, as it was described by Claire Murdoch on the socials last night. Always the bridesmaids.
But they're pushing to make sure that doesn't happen this year. They've got two very strong cars, I think, to make that happen. Obviously, one's just darted in for what looks to be what has probably turned into a route one of their scheduled pit stops. The other one's been up there at the front pretty much ever since the start of the race. It started on the front row of 347. They've kept themselves in the lead group, and they're still pushing on here. This is quite intriguing now, because of course it's as it kind of was before them a bit, but there's the Errant in that group. Of course, it's not just Polo Rosso and JW Bird in that top two. Their tandem's been, well, in their eyes, it's been spoiled by the Trojan car, just sat there right in the boat. There's nothing to do with it, which is quite intriguing. One car I think is probably just keeping its powder dry and keeping a watching brief on what's going on. P4 Emax Motorsport. We know how quick they are. They've been race winners multiple times in the last 12 months or so, even last 6 months, 12 months or so. Maybe they just sat there thinking, we don't have to get too much into the fire here. They realise it's a long race. Just thinking, let's see if the race just comes. Let's keep a good pace, but let's let the race come to us a little bit. Let's just bed ourselves in for the end of this first stint and see what happens. And again, actually going with them is that BPC Rob Smith car. For those who don't know Rob Smith, if you watched our Brscc stream before, you'll know him just as, you might just know him possibly simply just as the very capable driver who won the Fiesta Championship in the ST240 class in 2021. If you dig into his career, vast amount of GT endurance stuff. He's won, he's competed in World Endurance, he's competed in Le Mans, he's competed in what's now known as Fantech GT World Challenge, he's done the Nürburgring 24 hours, he's done the 24-hour series. All the that's like a proper CV of someone who knows what it's like to succeed in endurance races, and he's also quite competitive in sprint races too. And his son's quite talented also, because his son Sid Smith just happens to be the outgoing. Well, he will be outgoing this year because he'll be a brand new champion, the outgoing Fiesta Junior champion from last year. And he's also doing quite well in GB4. So there's something in the blood with that Smith family, because they're not half bad when they get behind the wheel.
Yeah, certainly. It must be the Weetabix they have every morning there. One car I want to point out.
Hot sauce.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to point out one gaggle in there. You can't miss it. The Jolt Racing car. That's probably the most immaculately prepared team.
I was about to get passed by the Brscc Motorsport car on the inside, but to no avail. Carry on.
Yes, John Ingram at the wheel there, but that is probably one of the most immaculately prepared cars and teams in the paddock. If you ever get a chance to go down the pit lane and talk to the team there. Oh, there's a bit of a squeeze on there.
Oh, that was 504. That was Josh Stanton, as it was before. That was Josh Stanton showing his every opportunity. It's literally taking two for the price of one. And the car that's lost out three, potentially four spots is 339. They got completely spooked by that one. So 339. That's the John Gladman car has been racing in 11th place. He shuffled down 4 or 5 spots in one go. He got completely spooked by the movement Josh Stanton put on him. Ingram thinking, no, I'm not having that. Into Abbey Corner, back to side by side. Again, just battles everywhere you look up and down the pack. It's beautiful, it's great.
I think the production team behind us are just going to have a job of like, right, what battle are we going to put up for them next to commentate on? Because it's happening absolutely everywhere. But that Jolt Racing team car is holding its own at the moment with John Ingram at the wheel. And he's made some really good progress as well. So they're up to 12th place with another JW Bird Motorsport car fighting behind them. I think JW Bird are probably fielding half the grid, aren't they?
I think their ambition is to try and take over from the back, kind of just like make sure that by the time we get this race next year, they'll be filling up positions first through the 50th the entire field. We're almost going to go 4 abreast in seconds. Has been racing, thinking, right, I'm not going to lose 3 spots in one go. I want the position back. It takes 2 back for Josh Stanton and the 356 car that's around the lips as well. 356, which is the JW Bird. That's the third of the JW Bird cars in there. So really getting stuck in at this point. Another of the SCK cars is also in the mix there too. I mean, everywhere you look, there's just a battle after battle after scrap. I know we keep on going on about it, but it's just one thing to marvel at with this particular race.
Exactly.
And I remind you, we're barely 2 hours into a 24-hour race, and the race is like it's a 15-minute sprint.
I know, it's unbelievable. I mean, guys, do we have to switch off at 9 o'clock, honestly? I could carry on. If the racing stays like this, I could carry on most of the night, Scott.
I think we might have to go and visit Mr. Trustwell in the commentary box and go and possibly give him some help, I think, for another couple of hours, because I don't think we're going to want to stop. I don't think either Andrew McCune or Andrew Mather wants to really stop either, because I think I get what they mean by saying they didn't really want to end their first league because they're having too much fun watching and commentating on this lot, having an absolute ball out on track as the sun starts, as the shadows start to lengthen, the sun starts to set. We're getting a really lovely golden hour, this late spring sort of like sunshine, a little bit of wisps of cloud in the edge you can see, but apart from that, it's beautiful clear skies. Couldn't wish for better weather conditions at the end of spring here, end of May, 24 hours for the C1s. It is glorious weather out there. Fantastic.
You can't wish for it. I will say it again, there is nothing like an endurance race anywhere in the world. The twilight going into the night, there's something about it, it's so special. And you referred to it earlier, that paddock, that party atmosphere's already started in the paddock, because there's a lot of dueling going on here, Scott.
One thing I was going to mention, that's a different cut. I was about to spook the BBC Motorsport team, but it looks like that's one of the different cars, because I thought that was Rob Smith dropping backwards, but it's not, it's one of a different car further back. So apologies for causing a spook there, but it's either the E389 or 437 time, one of you might be 437, but I thought for a second it was Rob Smith dropping that, but it's not. It's one of the team cars that are a bit further back in the top 30.
So we'll see these cars now going past the new pits here at Silverstone, vacated for, and we've got, that's car number 330, that's going very slowly. Is that a puncture?
Left front puncture.
Like it.
Yeah, you can see the tyre moving around on the left front, so that's going to be limping back a bit. Hasn't lights on, it should be.
I can't see any other damage on the car there, Scott, so is that a first indicator of where we're at with the tyre wear? We're nearly 2 hours into it.
Potentially.
So,
yeah, potentially. It's actually, thankfully, it's further around the circuit than I thought, because I thought it was actually only at Maggotts Beckson Chapel. Thankfully, it's only at Luffield, so it has to come out of Luffield into the pit lane already. So thankfully, it's minimised any dramas that there could have been. They'll be able to make that. But I think you're right. I wonder if maybe some teams look at that thinking, if it's happened to them and they're quite further down the order, it's probably a case of if or when that happens. Because as you were talking about, back in March, you were saying it was quite abrasive in terms of the tyres back then. And of course, I think the temperatures are warmer than people expected, both ambient and track temperatures. So because of that, maybe it's caught some teams off guard a bit thinking, this shows the pressures, this shows how long their tyres are, because they stopped them in. So, are they using the tyres that they use too much initially, or is it going to possibly cost them a bit later on? Some interesting decisions I think are going to be made in the next, I imagine, 15-20 minutes.
And the use of the curbs as well is going to play a key part in it. So there's the car number 330 just pulling in there now. The team will be having a good look. I don't think anyone was there to greet it, were they? Oh, they've got a jack there now. And don't forget, folks, as you're watching the crews work on the car, only 4 people are allowed to touch those cars at one point, and that includes the squishy bit sat behind the wheel, the driver too.
And the key also as well, I think, is it the wheels not allowed to be on the white line, or any part of the car behind?
Any part of the car behind that white line.
So essentially, it can be judged if the front bumper sticking actually a little bit too much over the line, that most likely will count as a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, I could be wrong, and Luke Souch, if he's up there clerking and I've said the wrong thing, he'll probably give me a slap later. But I'll recheck the briefing notes.
I'm glad we went back momentarily to that lead battle, because it's not just 2 or 3 4 cars, it's now an 8-car train for the lead now, led by JW Bird Motorsport, led by Scuderia Polo Rosso, with James Matthews at the wheel. So he's now really getting himself into the mix. Tyre change already underway for the car that was affected. That was a 330 car, isn't it? 330, which is involved in that. It's a 330 is the DS Motorsport car, and that had the wheels that came in 330 had Gary Boone in their 5-driver effort alongside Martin Dolan, Billy Selhey, Matthew Cousins and Matthew Burrows. So that car had a little bit early strife as we head towards the 2-hour mark. But this lead group, we're looking at the second group that was going on here, and back to our third group. So I know which group to look at now. You're thinking absolutely right. Now I've got once again, it always feels like this lot just haven't left each other alone since we last saw them, because they probably haven't, because we've got the 318 car in the mix now, which is the other the leading WRC developments car, with Burton Power, and the sole car that the Patrick Watt racing car that hasn't been described. That's the other car which has got currently at the moment, either Marcus or Morgan Short at the wheel. And as we look at that battle, once again, we've got more scraps going on. It has been racing in the mix with 5-2-1 and 3-5-6. So 5-2-1 is the auto farm car with Anthony Wild. I think Andy was mentioning that car has been really battling its way up the order. It seems to have not, I don't want to say stalled, but it's getting really just embroiled in this next group of cars behind the top 10, which is absolutely fantastic. You've then also got the other JW Bird car in there. That's the Rory Clark car for the lead. However, look at this. We thought the other two-pack line was busy. This is now 4 or 5 cars all together for the lead. You've got Ron Smith trying to go around the outside of Max Finn. He's running a bit wide, but look at this. It's practically nose to tail. You can throw a blanket over the top 3 there. Forget that the top 6 at the top 7 because the looks like that's Gary Preble's car in 7th place at the back of that train. Let's just try and work this one out. So we've got, it's now to the lead has gone Chris Freeman in the Trojan Motorsport car. It's now 2nd place with JW Bird now. And it's Adam Preble now that's in 7th place. Now, what have you got?
No, I've just noticed out of that lead group, I couldn't see Alan Preble there in the 558 car. I could only see Gary Preble in his car. So Alan has dropped
there
back.
He is.
You could see him in the background there. So whether a mistake has been made, but the top three are absolutely going hammer and tong through Copse Corner, fighting away with Trojan Motorsport and JW Bird and Scuderia Polo Rosso. I'll tell you what, that lead group that took off before those safety cars came out, Scott, they are going to be ruining this now. But that lead gap, I'll tell you what, if anyone tells me that C1 racing isn't close and competitive, just watch this battle now. 2 hours into a 24-hour race and they are going hammer and tong.
Glorious sight, isn't it? It's one of those it's battles and endurance race that you just hope for in the early stages. They really get together and go forwards. And it's almost like it's one of those things, one of those moments where you kind of think, do they have to have pit stops? And obviously, yes, they have to, but because it's going to break these guys up, and then you don't know how close they're going to get back. So these 2 hours they're going to get is they're keeping as close as possible. These are the moments you want to cherish, and of course, once they start to break them up a little bit, that's when you get bigger gaps and people have different strategies. So just I'm sure many people are, but just appreciate this 7-car scrap that we've got, because when the pit stops come through, it might break up a little bit, but in many cases I hope it doesn't. I hope they find each other again on track, and they're just as hard battling as it was before. So this group in turns, we've got now a possible change for 4th. Got Roll Smith going up the inside of Max Finn, it looks like it. Depends if we can hold the grip on the outside of the first one clubbed, but he's made the move stick, and Rob Smith using all of that endurance expertise and a bit more, and of course front-wheel drive experience. We've raced Fiestas the past couple of years, so he's now used to those as well. He's raced all these big rear-wheel drive sports cars and GT cars. He has a little bit of 24-hour TCR endurance stuff as well, so he's known front-wheel drive there, but his more recent race cars that he's driven have been all front-wheel drive. So for him, that plus endurance, it must equal manna from heaven.
Absolutely. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if at the next gap we have Gary Preble leading this race with the way this race has gone. He's at the back of this gaggle of cars, but the front three, Scuderia Polo Rosso, he's all over the back of him. Come on, let me through. I want a bit of this. JW Bird, Mac Wilson as well, just absolutely going hammer and tong. But we're just clicked over that 2-hour mark now, so we really are in the fuel window. So if we do get another safety car now, I reckon we're going to have these cars heading towards the pits. But the racing so far has been fantastic. And hey, if you did get a safety car out, wouldn't it be great if all 10 cars came in, pitted, did what they needed to do, and came straight back out to do it all again for another 2 hours?
Of course, we never want to influence pit strategy, because we'll be never. It's not like we listen to us down in several seconds ago on the TV listening to the college. No, of course not. It never happens. Anyway, they're starting to break up a little bit now. We've got now 2 trios, and the car being left behind is Gary Preble. What's also interesting for Silver Lake, all 3 of their cars are in the top 10. I know there's the 4th car they're also sporting as well, which is the
BGT Motorsport.
Yeah, which has got Ronnie and George Davis, so Fiesta Junior along the line. And then a bit further down, it looks like they're probably sat in 29th place at the moment, that probably with George Davis in the wheel. And they're also on the lead lap, which is quite incredible. What I find is astonishing, look at that. It just flashed up on the timing screen. Top 6 at the moment have just come across the line, covered by 0.6 of a second. Actually, no, forgive me, they haven't. Sorry, it's 2.2 seconds. I'm looking at the wrong gap in that sense, but it's 2.2 seconds covering it. But in C1 terms, that's almost nothing given their speed, which is incredible.
Absolutely nothing at all. Look at that, we've got a back marker that's just, and that's the car that's just coming to have the puncher sort. The Trojan's car, come on, get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way.
And look at James Matthews, he's looking to try to get up the inside line, but gets the door firmly shut in his face by Chris Freeman, who's now in a real catch-22 situation. He's thinking, what are you doing? Get out of the way. I have 5 very fighty C1 cars behind me. I need to get past. Thankfully, 330 does a sensible bit. Although the rule is that the fastest car has to fight its way around and the slower car stays where it is. So that's good driving for the 330 car. But what it has done is brought them all back in together again. And look also what's looking pretty key. This is really intriguing. Look at this. For 4th place, Rob Smith is all over the back of the JW Bird car. He could be on the podium by the time we get to the next couple of laps.
Now, our colleague Andrew Mather has been putting the comments up on YouTube. Thank you very much for that, Andrew. The tyres themselves, they're seeing a good degree of wear on some tyres that he's seen in the pit lane so far. A number of the pit boards are reading fuel, so the teams are trying to get the messages out there to their drivers just to see what they're looking at in terms of fuel. Obviously, three safety car periods, there would have been a lot of fuel saving going on, but when the cars are fighting hammer and tong like this, and they are fighting, they're not just sort of working together in it. It's just going to use up that little bit more fuel, that little bit more tyre wear in this. But you know what? Just carry on, guys. All pit together. I'm saying this to all the teams out there. If you are listening to us, just get the pit stop sorted. Oh, there's a Burton Power car in the pits there, so it's a shame that they can't renew their battle. But I'm sure they'll get some more battles out on the track, but the team just getting ready and sticking some fuel in the car. I did actually speak to Ashley Davis last night, and he said that they're just doing a fair 2-hour stint across all of their drivers. They're really in it for the fun, that team, but it'll be good to see how the likes of Tommy Valentine, Ashley Davis, Colin French, and you know, how they get on in that car and what kind of result, because even if they're doing just 2-hour stints, if they keep their noses out of trouble and they keep an eye on the tyre wear and keep an eye on everything else, they could still well be on for a good result.
It certainly could be, but of course what result we get depends on what happens here in the next pit stop. This can still change around by the time we get to the start to pit in. Now the key is going to be is, now that Burton Power's pitted, I guess the next option is going to be is that each time they go past the pits, which of this lead group darts in first? Who's going to be the first one to the beginning of this lead group? And they're coming up to pit lane now. Are we going to get any pit callers here? Is it going to be Trojan or anyone else? Does anyone dart for pit lane? The answer is no. No, they're comfortable at the moment, so they're going to carry on for another lap here. But as you mentioned, I'm sure that manager's observation, I'm sure that if they're getting the signals out for fuel, that you can see the pit boards out here. That I can see one that's already do read, in fact, fuel. So they are calling them in saying, look, unless they're getting some signal from the team behind, saying if they get like a wave or something to show them that, you know, our fuel's okay. Obviously, if it wasn't, then obviously they would try and look at the calculations, or they get a signal from the driver saying they want to come in. So they're going to be keeping an eye on that on the pit wall in order to see if they do get a signal. If they do, it'll be action stations in the pit lane, and either it's going to be people taking their turns in sequences, or we're going to get possibly, as you mentioned, an entire flood of activity with all 7 of those guys do come in together. That's going to be quite a sight for one Andy McKeown to have to try and look at, but also deal with in terms of talking to drivers.
Bless him, he's going to be having a nervous breakdown just trying to line up interviews out there, but Andy's ready and waiting in the pit lane at points for any interviews. But I just can't keep my eyes off this lead battle. That Trojan car is absolutely going for hell for leather still with Scuderia Polo Rosso. If they could just keep racing like this for another 24 hours, I will be a very happy man. The Jolt, that's the Jolt car number 370 in the pits, having one of its pit stops, so that's taken itself from another battle that we were watching earlier, Scott, and that's the car number 598, the Calamity Motorsport car there. I can't see that on our timing screens at the moment. It must be outside the top 30 as we just we can only see the top 30 on our TSL screen at the moment. But back to this lead battle, they are absolutely hammer and tong. The very brightly covered Trojan car with the Alpha sponsorship on it as well, and Toro Rosso is munching at that back bumper. I don't think you can even get a fag paper in between that in terms of the gap. And then, does that look like Rob Smith in 3rd place?
It might well be. Yeah, it might be, because Rob Smith's been pushing pretty hard in this stint since the restart, and I imagine that he was right on the back of the Matthew Wilson car 347, so he might well be getting himself into the mix now to get himself into a podium place if he can, because he's been steadily strategically moving his way up. As we see now, what's interesting. Now this is intriguing. The JW Bird car, which came in for its bumper move, is now sat right in front of all people, the race leaders. So this is going to be pretty intriguing. And I think it either has one of the shorts at the wheel. That's the JW Bird car. Who's the wheel of that? That's the 449. Look on the times that I've got on. So we're hearing the tablets in front of me here. 449. So that's got now Kieran Griffin at the wheel, the son of Liam Griffin, who's in one of the other JW Bird cars. And he's ultimately, of course, that car is on the same pace as everyone else, so he's keeping his position, and everyone else has to make his way around. It looks as though, has BBC got to 3rd place in the mix? Well, they're there, but here comes Polo Rosso. They are 3rd position. I've got confused on the JW Bird car in the mix. And as they try to move through. That will be pretty intriguing. Right, one of our first pit calls is in. Well spotted that on the time screen, Rob. Silverlake Racing 558, Adam Preble, engine 8.
Alan Preble.
Alan Preble, sorry.
That's the uncle, yeah. Adam's in the car with Gary in the sister car for this lead group. Right, no one's pitted. It's okay. The lead group is still going with Rob Smith in third, Scuderia Polo Rosso pushing Trojan up the pitch straight. And then in fifth place, we've got the Fighting Talk car. So Silverlake team getting to work with the Alan Preble car. His work is done for that opening stint, so he'll be going to get a well-earned bottle of water there. And, well, the only problem with the Silverlake cars is they're that immaculately presented with the camo, you can't see them.
Yeah, all I can see really there is just two fire marshals just pouring fuel into nothing.
Yeah, it's just a four wheels, it's a floating car. Well, that's the first dad joke we've got out of the way of the 24 hours.
That was terrible. Bear with us, of course. It is the beginning of a 24-hour race. They will get worse.
Absolutely.
Also join them in the pit lane, we've got JW Bird, Ruby Clark's car 356, and Jolt Racing, one of the cars that you like to look of. John Ingram in for his stop as well. So a few of those first early pit callers, and I wonder if some of the leading teams will be looking at and thinking, depending on how their cars are feeling, they're thinking, is it our time? Is it now? I'll have to wait and see. Now then, this could be the time for the lead change, because back to the lead possibly could be going to Scuderia Polo Rosso, diving up the inside in towards Stoke Corner. Thank you very much, Chris. Up into the lead once again goes Scuderia Polo Rosso, but I have a feeling that Rob Smith might start to pull the pin here and go, right, time to play my trump card, my turn to go for the lead possibly.
I think he's got to, hasn't he?
Here he comes.
He's the experienced old fox down the inside. A lovely little move. He just squeezes him out, but Polo Rosso leads. Rob Smith tucks it in behind him in the BPC tuning car. Lovely move there, Rob Smith, showing his pedigree, his finesse. That was lovely. I love watching that nice tiny move like that. No paint swaps, done. Down the inside, Bosch. Done, and he's hunting down that Trojan car now, but he's also got traffic. So here we go, we've got car number 310 that's just moving down the inside of car number 342. Is that still just checking that one, but we're still looking at this lead gaggle going around now with Rob Smith in second place, being hounded still by the Trojan car. There's a bit of gap that's pulled open, so I'm wondering as well, traffic is now starting to play a bit of an influence in this lead battle.
Starting to, and it has been on and off throughout this opening couple of stint for these cars before they make pit stops. 347 now, look at the car on either side. That was amazing. I think that's the Fighting Talk car that's just slipped past Matthew Wilson, and they've literally gone either side of a lapped car, and it's worked perfectly for Fighting Talk. So I don't want to say it, but Schumacher, Hakkinen on Zonta, Spa 2000, that's exactly the same, only at much lower speeds, much different cars, and a much more technical part of the circuit down the long straight.
And now you've said that, I can hear Murray Walker's dulcet tones now, Scott. Thank you for that. What a move that was, and what a move that was on the C1 racing. Who said C1 racing was boring? Look at this. This is astounding.
Ignorance that just don't know how fun this series really can be, because and that's stigma I think that's unfairly put on endurance races sometimes. If you look at some of the races that we have, even that Supersport endurance race that we had was quite exciting in terms of the strategy element and how that played out.
Absolutely.
But people sometimes look at the endurance races, and I think other series that we can mention, even was like a good example alongside C1s, is the Fun Cup as well. People look at the race and go, 3-4 hours, not really that exciting. Far from it. I mean, look, this is a 24-hour race and 2 hours in. These guys are fighting for the lead literally like it's a 15-minute sprint race.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely magnificent. And again, they're going to then do that again, I'm sure, when they get back in. And this might be the closest they are at any point in the race at some point going forward. It's really interesting to see how this is all going to play out and how the dynamics of the race will develop in this case. And as they come through the complex now, it's again to that point where thinking again, you start to think every single time, is now the moment to make a pit stop? Is it now? Is it now? But as the safety cars really help them kind of save enough fuel and tyres to go a little bit longer on the stint, which is going to be quite intriguing. What I noticed with that sequence there is, as James Matthews was going past the Park Traction Watch racing car, he did get quite a good run and closed right up onto the back of him through Maggots and Beckett's. Decent run off of Chapel. He's getting pretty close. He's got to deal with the lap traffic here to get past him here if he can.
Oh, is there a move there on? He did have a look down the inside.
Thought about it. He definitely thought about it, but didn't quite make that one stick. And looks at Trojan sitting back and let him get through. The next car that the leader Polo Ross is going to lap is the Burton Power car, which already made one of its first pit stops. Nicely slots his past and puts a lap on him. He's laps him going to the Vale and Club. The Trojan car also making it past Patrick Blackman's 507 car. That's another good start and done. that vehicle, the Silverlake fighting talk car, tailing JW Bird, and also in there too, quietly sitting back and observing from a distance, Emax Motorsport and also Gary Preble in the leading Silverlake car. I have to say, this is not just that they've been off the pace at all, but it's nice to see Silverlake up there in the lead group. Sometimes they're a bit lower down than you expect them to be, a bit lower down than they'd like to be, but whatever they've managed to make work for those 24 hours, they've got like all three, at least two, at one point, they had all three of their cars in the top 10. So credit to Silverlake Race, they've been working hard between, I think, at least Alton Park and now to get these cars up into some real serious speed.
Well, in particular with two of the cars. So the car that's car number 398, that's down to Gary and Adam Preble and Mike Harris. They prepare the car themselves. And the Preble dynasty, I mean, the king of Coombe is driving that car currently. And you've got Adam there as well, multiple race winner at Carlson Coombe as well. You've got Mike Harris there, who was on the podium for Team Silverlake last year. You know, proper top drivers. And I can tell you now, the work of Greg Rose and Harry and the team at Silverlake. And I've got the insider information in that in terms of my day job is at Silverlake with the social media side of things. But seeing the work that's gone into those cars, immaculately presented. Alan Preble himself is hugely passionate about the series. It's why he sponsors it, and the proof's in the pudding now. The cars were rebuilt from the ground up, and all three cars in the top.
Fighting talk in. Sam 309. So that's one of our first front runners to blink. So Ollie Samways then brings the 309 Fighting Talk car into the pit lane, brings it back to the 40 kph speed limit. You can see there, look, I think we're expecting quite the influx.
Busy pit lane.
Because that was a massive crowd of C1 Racing Club yellow tabars there. So I suspect it's going to get busy down in pit lane in the next couple of laps, I'm certain, because it looks like Silverlake are preparing for at least one of their cars to come in from that leading group. Possibly some of this lot might possibly jump in as well, but I think we're going to get a big influx. Yeah, you can see that more fuel boards going out. One for DSC went out. DSC, actually right down the road, right? 43rd place. Although the showing is being in pit lane at the moment, so they're putting a board out for a car that's already in pit lane. Unless they're signaling to somebody else with a different name. I'm not sure.
He didn't get the dad joke there, folks.
So sometimes these kind of jokes go over my head, so it happens. So here's our leading group then. A little bit of a gap being pulled now by Scuderia Polo Rosso. James Matthews getting away a little bit. This lot aren't. Look at this. We've got now.
Wow, go on.
Lots going in the mix there. And now look at the. For a second, we cut away to our pit stop in sequence fighting talk, and then back to the group that's going on. So this is the gaggle that's going on for 5th place downwards. You've got Emax 346 with Max Finn at the wheel, then Gary Preble. 398. You've got the lap 507 car, that's the Patrick Watts car that's coming in one of its first few pit stops. You've also got the lap Joe Roach car, that's the other JW Bird car that's in that group. Then you've got another car on top of that as well.
Well, it's certainly, I think this is the new gaggle of cars that are just finding a bit of extra pace that they can get with the safety cars allowed them. But still, we've got out front those front three cars of Polo Rosso, BPC Motorsport and Trojan Motorsport. Scott, I've got to give you credit, you are right on the money with that BPC Motorsport car with Rob Smith. He is really showing his talent there as they go into the hairpin. But I tell you what, Wilson has managed to get onto the back of them, so we've got a leading quartet there now as they go round the hairpin. But should we start the sweepstake now? Who out of that top four is going to blink first, do you reckon?
That's a credit. I don't want to guess on things like that because of course it gets very tricky. This is going to be interesting to see how it breaks up. I possibly maybe either Trojan or JW Bird might bring one of those two cars in the first time. I think maybe BPC might. I think Motorsports had enough injury experience in the head of this to know kind of where he needs to push and where he gets matching heights and the most of what he's got. We'll wait and see. We'll see if anyone from this kind of leading sort of 7-8 cars at the front of the field do manage to dive in the pits. Again, they're good for another lap, so they're going to carry on. However, indicator on Emax are in. So Emax from P5 are in. Max Finn is going to bring the car that finished second last year, and the car that won the last 4 races on the bounce last season, and won Alton Park last time out, bringing that car into pit lane now. So that'll either be handed over to either Stuart Ratcliffe or to James Little or Jake Little as well. And of course, when the Littles get behind the wheel on those cars, that Emax Motorsport car absolutely flies around any circuit they get behind the wheel.
And Stuart Radcliffe isn't a bad pilot himself.
Yeah,
the three of them getting the wing last time out at Norton Park, and little senior and junior just absolutely monster that car every time they get into it, and it'll be good to see them up there. I do actually wonder to myself, Scott, what page has Glenn Finn got the illustrious red book of Glenn Finn strategies on? What page do you reckon he's on, and what volume?
I reckon he's on volume 6, page 874, part 6, subsection 7B, I think, which is running in 5th position and making a pit stop 2 hours and 20 minutes into a race in late May in the sunshine when you've got a certain sequence of cars in front of you. So he is almost the font of knowledge when it comes to kind of he's given the fact they've won so many, what was it, the 5 of the last 6 C1 endurance races. He always is literally like he's the font of all knowledge when it comes to C1 strategy. He is almost the master at it because they managed to play their card so brilliantly well. This is the BGD car that's coming. That's the Silverlake supported BGD racing car. So that's George Davis getting out of the car. That's pitting from a quite impressive 21st position. That's not too bad for them. They're starting C1 racing this season, and before that they've done a little bit of other endurance stuff on top of that, as well as, of course, both George and Bryony Davis. I think they made a bit of history in 2020 as being the only siblings to ever race together in a Fiesta Junior race. You've had siblings like Bradley Ken and Lewis Ken, but they raced together in senior level Fiesta Championship, but they never raced together at junior level, whereas you had Bryony and George basically running out the same team as a family team, but they were the first ever siblings to run together and race on the same track together in a Fiesta Junior race in 2020.
That must get a bit awkward when it gets a bit too competitive, and then they have to go home and see the same person.
Yeah, I imagine the post-race weekend trip down to KFC. I don't remember them actually making any contact, which is thankfully is a good thing. But no, they're two drivers who are, as many are, very fine ambassadors of Fiesta Juniors, of course. And if I can afford to talk about the level series for a second, Fiesta Juniors obviously doing this on proud. Now then, forget that for a second because there's been a bit of a change here. So this is now Trojan losing 3rd place to 347 JW Birds. This is now then Matthew Wilson getting back into podium place, pushing Chris Freeman back down to 4th. Now, leaders, do any of them decide to die for the pits? Yes, Trojan in from what is now 4th position. So I wonder if that was slightly strategic in terms of, look, there's no bother fighting it. I'm pitting anyway. Yeah. Let's let you go through. I'm going to come in and make a driver change. So this is Trojan. We talked about this, of course, the fact this is a solo car effort rather than a 2-car effort. So it seems as though pooling all the resources and putting all the team together from those 2 cars into one single effort, including all the drivers that they use, it seems to be, at the very least in this front-running part of the race, paying off dividends. They took pole position by a second, and they've got really good, strong front-running pace to keep up there. I think the solo car approach is 100% bang-on working for them.
Fantastic, and I really want to look at this pit stop to see how they do with that and see how efficient they are. It'll be interesting to see what sort of time they get. And then we've got these 2 other cars with BPC tuning hunting down the Scuderia Polo Rosso car. They'll be trying to negate that pit stop coming as much as possible, just to increase that little bit more track time together. So possibly with Rob Smith off his chart, James Matthews could well get a few extra laps out of it, possibly.
We said we're waiting for the hive activity. It's beginning, because if you look at the timing screen, about half the teams on that timing screen have the cog next to them on the screen, which suggests they're in pit lane. The highest placed those is Trojan, also in the pit lane, 458 Silverlake 2 with Tony Cooper at the wheel, AB Motorsport with Ollie Orwood at the wheel, 394. Auto Farm with Anthony Wild is in, ABC1, so both of the AB Motorsport cars are in. In fact, that car's just pitting the Luke Pulling car. I've just seen it go past our commentary box outside looking in the background. We've got all the cars from 20th to 23rd all in together. That's Bianca Auto Developments, BPD Motorsport, the other BPC Motorsport car with Steve Rustin at the wheel, and you've got the Scuderia Potenza car 23rd, Ram Sport from 26th also in as well. See if there's anyone else down from 31st down. If I quickly scroll on the other timing screen that we've got. And the answer is, yeah, Red Sky Racing are also in after their pit stop after their earlier dramas. And also DSC have been in for a while. So, as we thought, that big hive activity has now absolutely kicked in. The big question is, when do these 2 join the party and make their first stops, first calls to pit lane?
Well, I did see a bit of gesticulation from the Polo Rosso car there now, so they're all working together, I think, to get through this traffic, and it's good to see the back markers as well. Just got a bit of a sensible head on, just making sure they move out of the way, get a bit clear. They know the cars behind are going to be the quicker cars coming through. I mean, a lot of the regulars in this championship will kind of know what other teams are pushing up. near the front. But as it stands, Polo Rosso first, BPC Motorsport with Rob Smith in second. In third place is JW Bird Motorsport. Trojan Motorsport 421 obviously has long gone from that battle and into the pits there. We have got a bit of a delay if you're watching at home, folks, on the timing screen on the left hand side. It takes its basically TSL, which obviously updates every lap there. But the two cars, as you can see on the screen there, the logo on the back of the Scuderia Polo Rosso car, go like cluck.
Yep, absolutely so. And they are trying to, of course, but they've still got Smith, who was using all the road and a little bit more on the exit of the curve there. Less we say about track limits and what's been said about in recent weeks, I think the better. I think there's been a lot of conversation, but I think hopefully now is not the time to talk about them because we've got much more pressing matters about this incredible race. Two teammates essentially have found themselves on the track together. One of the there's SCK Motorsport and BH Motorsport, then there's the BH/SCK Motorsport car combined together, which is definitely good. But we've got 504 and the 508 cars together. So they're on track mix, and they 504 is in there. Silverlake, the Preble car for 308 is also in as well. So we've got more of those top few cars coming to make their pit stops. 342 car, the Rab Sport car is also back out there as well. So that's one of its earlier pit stops as well. I think that's one of the cars that the car that Ryan Benzie was driving. No, that's a different one. That's SF Racing actually. Forgive me. That's the Sean Fleming, Gary Wage, and John Wall, Chris Brownhill car. But these two essentially teammates, the BH Motorsport and SCK Motorsport cars, running in tandem together as they make their way out through Copse Corner. We're approaching, incredibly, at 2.5 hours into this race now, which is quite unfathomable, which is as we go through. And more teams and more drivers, or more cars. The time has been just constantly shifting as the cars go past pit stops, get completed, and they start to cycle with that first phase of stops. It's still top two as it was at the front, and Matthew Walsh is keeping the watching brief in third place. Here's the cars on the end of the pit lane, including the Trojan Motorsport team. Now, for those who might be watching for the first time, might be thinking, why are they stopping at the end of the pit lane? There's a good reason for that. It's because all the teams and every single driver has what's something called a hue tag. It's basically personalised to each driver. It's registered to each driver. And then what happens is that when you make a pit stop, obviously you have to go. Obviously, one of the things that you usually do so is to change drivers. When that happens, I'll get back to that in a second because lead change. Up to the front now has gone. Rob Smith and BPC tuning. He's hit the front in cars 375. He's slotted past the Scuderia Polo Rosso car. I wonder if that's either strategic or just going for it to have the track position and the bragging rights before they make their first pit stop.
I think that is a smart head on the shoulders there. Those two are just looking to maximise that last part of the stint. 2.5 hours, they really are stretching this stint out. So I think they're just going with just drive it as long as they can, as hard as they can, and then minimise the pit stop time. Now, all of the chat leading up to it has been about pit stops and the chunk of time compared to a lap time. Well, it's Scuderia Polo Rosso that have been practicing their pit stops at home. 30-second chunk they've saved, which is a fifth of a lap. Over a 24-hour race, they saved 2 laps. So their pit work is really going to come into its own here. Now, the one thing we have noticed on our YouTube comments, thank you so much to our colleague here. We've got Tom Buttons commenting how many sets of tyres are allowed. As many as they want, as long as they've got a set of good tyres on the car to carry them through. The teams are allowed to buy as many of these tyres as they want. There is no certainly on the 24-hour race. We've also got none other than Dave Goddard,
the legend himself, Mr. Goddard. Welcome to the broadcast. Welcome to the live chat. He's always present when he's not commentating himself, and he is always usually in the chat watching motorsport. So, Mr. Goddard, great to have you as part of the broadcast. Hopefully, you are enjoying it as much as we are. And I know that I think that he's even doing some World Superbike stuff. But he's also otherwise occupied around the country. But there's not to mention other stuff, but they won't directly. But there's a lot of racing going around this weekend. But for those of you that are here this weekend, here watching the trackside or watching the stream here, thank you for those who are tuning, because of course it's great to see that you're enjoying the C1s. And the C1s, it looks like to us at least, are putting on a wonderful show for those that are watching and enjoying this 24-hour race. And there's still plenty of time to go through it, all to change and all to develop as it goes on.
Absolutely. And Dave has come straight in with a question off the bat. Why do the cars have such high numbers? So you will notice all of the cars in the field have 300 to 400 to 500. And it all stems from the Spa version of the race. So the UK used to have a class, and it all used to be 300 numbers. So when the UK class was sort of adopted and taken over, they just kept with it. So every car has a 300 number. I mean, I'm sure somewhere there has probably been 300 race spec C1s in various, whether they're out racing or they're in garages or they're not raced anymore, or
they're old cars. There probably is about 300 race C1s out
Probably.
there. But that is the reason, Dave, why they have such high numbers in this series.
What I think is also great as well, if we look at because when you look at the different, look at the C1, it's had one of the different facelifts as it's gone through.
Yes.
But the great thing is, you get almost the entire history of the first generation C1 in terms of facelift. But actually, if you look at the three cars, just notice something. In the top three, this is a really nerdy fact, but I'm going to go with it. If you look at the top three, they've almost got the three different facelifts, front end styles. In the top three, you've got. I couldn't tell you which generation they are. I know that this one here, the Silverlake one, is the more modern of the three. But I think the first generation kind of look on the front of the car, I think that's the Polo Rosso car. Then the second gen, or the first revision of it is the BPC one, and the second revision is the car that's in third place. I thought that as a nerdy fact for those who are watching. I know Dave Goddard will certainly appreciate that fact in many cases, but because he's as much of an anorak, if not more than me. So that kind of front end, that bit of a bit of sort of trivial sort of sight we've got here of all three essentially kind of different generations of front end redesign, front end design of the C1 are in the top three positions in overall race. Different but the same, or the same but different.
But I'll tell you, the one thing I am very impressed with as well is the short work that these two are making on the back markers. I mean, we can't have enough to say about Rob Smith and James at the wheel of the Scuderia Polo Rosso car. They've been making light work. It's been good, sound, professional moves, just making sure we see good to see Red Sky Racing back out there and fighting fit after their early troubles. I'm going to have to say it, Scott, track limits. Rob has run a bit wide a few times, shall we say, and he's got to be a bit wary, surely, as we see a bit of bug drafting.
He's getting the push. He's getting the push from the car behind.
I'd say it's more Morse code than anything.
He's tapping the message. Go faster, Rob. Come on. Put your foot down. Rob's thinking, I'm going as fast as they can go.
It's only got 68 horsepower. Just leave me alone.
But it has been a couple of points in this stint where he's had him on the back bumper, but also he's had a couple of moments since he got past where he's had a couple of car lengths to. Well, I say it's the vertical. Whoa, relax. That was that. That was a car spin. That was the 501 car going for a spin. Now we didn't quite catch it, but the big question that we always like asking the scenario is: did he jump or was he pushed?
10. that was a pirouette and a half.
That's not the answer I was expecting. But yeah, that was a spin. The main thing is he's kept going. I think we can get on the benefit of looking back here on the replay on the YouTube things if he did get a tap or not, or if they caught what happened or not. As the camera kind of went, as the camera panned back, it then happened. It kind of looks like he did it by himself. But if we look back on that, the replay on the delay on the stream on YouTube, it looks like it wasn't a tap for anyone else. I don't think.
Yeah.
So looks like that car will carry on as it was.
Just incidentally about car number 318 there, you saw on the shot coming through what I'd like to call the 80s liveried car, because it's dressed up like someone in a nightclub from the 80s with bright colours on it.
Yes.
Chris Chadwick, as he's also known, former race winner with none other than Robin Welsh as Team Sailor V, former 24-hour winner.
Ah, yes,
so
that's the team that I remember well.
So he's come back into the 24 hours this year, and of course one of the other drivers, Paul Dickinson, he's in one of the Team Silverlake cars, car number 558. So a little bit of geeky knowledge there for you guys. We've got another comment here from L4N00. Oh no, I think he's trying to spell Lando. Let's go Cameron Hawes. Good first stint from Luke. Fantastic. So Cameron Hawes, who's racing this weekend, I believe. So he's got represents himself as from the Isle of Man, but the last I heard from Cameron, he was actually racing in France.
Yeah, I believe he had to come from, I think he was in Switzerland or Belgium. He had to come across north to do this race. So I knew he was kind of finalising his sort of make sure his licence was all okay and everything was all in form. And actually, in fact, he's not doing too bad. He's in the mix. He's in the ABC1 car now, 22nd position. So respectable spot. That car's back out, which is the 506 car, though. You can see where it took the whack on the left rear corner, and yes, they fixed it, but there's also part of it, maybe it's just how it goes through the corner, where it almost at point doesn't look completely straight. It looks a little bit, sort of, still a little bit, sort of like bent a little bit. But still, drive it with that now. It's 507. That's the 506 car. There's the car, which is that's what we talked about last night. This is, in fact, the only left-hand drive car in the race. Every other car in the field is right-hand drive. It's left-hand drive. As this is important now, then.
Both
is this strategic from both of them, because they have a top two in together? This is going to be battle of the pit stop. So if Andy's down in pit lane, he's going to be either between them or either one or two of those pit stalls as they both come in. So both Rob Smith and James Matthews bring the top 2 cars in, BPC Tuning and Scuderia Polo Rosso. Who'd have thought it? In the first set of pit stops, this is going to be interesting.
We've got to watch this as the Polo Rosso car comes in, the car stops. Look at the efficiency of the team. Now, I believe the way this works, they take 2 wheel nuts off, they get the driver out, they step away, so they've already got the wheels ready to take off. They just need to take 2 nuts. And now the crew gets to work. It's time to refuel the car up now. Now, it'll be interesting to see what driver they opt to get into that car to carry on the magnificent work that Matthews has done. But the team for now are just fueling that car up. And look at the front of it. That is a quite funky looking car, and I do like the angry chickens they have got on it. So, now,
I don't know if you recognise eyes
that
through a
looks
helmet.
like Frank.
Make sure they stay inside so they can keep an eye on the pit lane.
Is that Frank? And it does. Hopefully, we're going to get an interview with these guys. But Polo Rosso team fueling up. So where does that leave Mr. Wilson, who would have been in 3rd place? He's not showing on our timing screens as coming into the pit. So it's the JW Bird Motorsport car and the SCK Motorsport car. Kyle Reid is it at the wheel. Chris Chadwick is up to 5th place as well. He hasn't pitted either. So
yeah, some more recent pit callers. Well, there has been racing cars. It's sort of ambling its way into its pit box in the background, being helped in. Now, the others getting some assistance as well, being pushed back. So, is there possible suggestion either a problem, or dare I say it, that they run that car a little bit dry?
Is it running on fumes, you reckon, still?
Possibly. I mean, if he's in the pit lane, he's coming in from 6th position. That's John Randall in the pit lane. So, if I make sure I got that right, actually, I'm a fool for doing that sometimes. Yeah, John Glanman, it is him. So, that car in which pit lane. Also, some other top 10 callers in BPC. The other BPC car, which is up to 7th place. That's really impressive stuff in BPC, leading and in 7th place. That's the 389 car, which is when it came in. I think that's possibly a late entry, I think, because it wasn't on our original list, I don't think. So, yeah, it wasn't on our original list there, so we'll work that one out in a bit. But in terms of the rest of the other cars in the top 10 of the pitting, the BH Motorsport SCK Motorsport car, Josh Stanton in for its pit stop from 8th. Ross McEwen in for Indigo Motorsport, also 2 from 9th. So a few more front runners in for pit stops. The key thing is going to be here is which of the top 2 get out first. Is it going to be Scuderia Polo Rosso? Because they look pretty well drilled and efficient. Not just, of course, the BBC isn't, of course, for them. Now, this is 3, this is 3, 4, that's not for position, because that's the 3.7 car. But you wonder, are they going to take the lead here of the top 2 cars in front, and are they going to hit the pit lane for their first pit stop? A lot more Emax cars in their toes. Brooklands. Now they're going to tuck right and hold the inside line. Looks like they possibly are.
Here
yes.
we go.
So in comes then JW Bird Motorsport 347. Part leaders at one point in for their first stop with Matthew Wilson at the wheel. So that will be handing over to either Nick Beaumont, Phil House, or Anthony or Tony Prendergast. One of the 3. Lots of not just C1 but also VW Cup experience in that car as well. Polo Rosso just about finishing its, looks like completely finishing its refuel. That was a long fuel stop for Polo Rosso. They're planning to go quite long in terms of fuel for the second stint, or at least fuel it to the brim. So then, if they do have to make any more stops, it's just driver change it back out again. So that could be quite interesting how that plays out. I'm intrigued to see, possibly find out what sort of fuel strategy if they're going fully. A full tank at BBC Motorsport, or whether or not they've chosen to fuel it a little bit lighter to get a bit more pace and try and have maybe a slightly shorter stint, but to try and go a little bit quicker with less weight for fuel. Carry on. The rest of the pit stop now, and of course, as you mentioned, efficient with the wheel nuts. They're already getting the front wheels off now that refueling work is done.
So they've got the torque wrenches on the front. They're just sorting out that right front, dropping the car, getting the torque wrench on, making sure everything's nice and tight. And now the rest of the team.
Well, that's interesting. We just heard from our producer in the background. Nobody else who's been pitted so far has actually changed tyres.
Interesting.
So apparently that possibly is, in terms of the first scheduled one at least, the first proper scheduled tyre stop with the race, and it's Scuderia Polo Rosso. So it looks like they've taken a full tank of fuel, by the looks of it, because it was quite a long time they were on the fuel, and at least fresher tyres on the front. So interesting call of strategy early on for Scuderia Polo Rosso. They want as much pace as possible to go as long as possible, because of course the fronts get more torque than the rear, so they want maximum performance and also maximum stint length as much as possible. Maybe are they also gambling as well if they go with a full tank? Maybe that's possible. They're gambling on possibly another safety car that pops up between now and their next pit stop.
I think, well, it's certainly a hell of a gamble to play if you're not going to change your tyres in that first stint, knowing that there's potentially a lot of high tyre wear going on.
That's interesting. I looked at the timing screen. So the driving change has been made, so we can confirm it's Frank Claydon who's gone into the Scuderia Polo Rosso car, and it's Sylvain Rubio, who, of course, for those who watched the race back in March, won the race with Mac Tools Racing with a certain couple of rather capable co-drivers. You might have heard
the world's fastest mullet.
You might have heard of them. They're called Josh Cook and Jane Edwards, who are not here this weekend because they've got a certain tin top series over in Norfolk they've got to go and deal with, of course. But I'm sure they'll be observing this evening what's happening in the races, and shout outs to both, of course, because both of them with Sylvain won that opening race in March, and they both sing Sylvain's praises very, very highly. But at the same time, he's very humble as Silver. He doesn't sort of. I mean this in a nice way. He doesn't sort of properly talk himself up or have a big ego. I think he's faster than he realises he is in some cases. Because Jade and Josh see that, and they've trained him very, very well. Right, I think we're going down to the pit lane for an interview from Mr. McEwen. So down to Gasly and I, as it was. Mr. McEwen, who do you have and what have you got?
Well, it took a while to get the leaders into the pit lane, but finally Scuderia Polo Rosso pitted. James Matthews here alongside me. You needed a minute, I think, to catch your breath. That looked really good fun out there, but so intense when you're battling nip and tuck for so long.
Yeah, it was great fun. Really close to all the cars. Every time we got a little break, we had a safety car and brought all the pack back together. You saw your mirrors filled with cars again. But yeah, each safety car start went well. Managed to build a little gap with somebody or other, either a Trojan or a JW Bird. And yeah, really good. So hopefully in a good place.
And that's key, really, isn't it, to the fact that you were able to go so long, because you were always working with people saving fuel.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't really want to be in the lead, if I'm really honest. I think a couple of us discussed that at the start, and we're like, nobody really fancied it. You just burn tyres and fuel. So I was generally the second place man. I think I probably led 20 or so of the laps, but I tried to stay in second most of the time and largely convinced people to do it with a generous bump draft every now and again.
Interesting that you mentioned saving tyres, though, because I've been up and down the pit lane the last 45 minutes or so. Not many tyre changes going on, but you did change fronts.
Yeah, we just want to know what's likely to happen. In the first round this year, Josh Cook and the guys that won it were down to the cords, and that race wasn't as long as 2 stints of this. So unless people know something we don't, which is more than possible, then we're just going to go slightly safer.
Who's in the car for you now, then? What's the plan for the next hour or so?
So Frank Claydon's in the car now, a Scuderia Polo Rosso member since 2017, one of the originals. So yeah, he's out and going to do a full tank and take it into the evening.
And you off to bed, or are you going to stay up for a bit?
I'm definitely going to stay up for a bit. I am too wired to sleep right now.
Thought you may say that, James. I'll let you go and catch your breath. Thank you so much for joining us, though. James Matthews then out of the race leading car, but yeah, interesting there. One of the only front running team to bother changing tyres. A lot of the teams that I've seen have checked the tyres, and they've all sort of said, oh, it can do about an hour and a half or so. But as we know, and as Rob I'm sure can confirm for us, that is significantly less than a full tank of fuel. So I think a few of them will struggle on tyres come the next round of pit stops.
There is that possibility, Chris. We'll see how that plays out. That one. Thank you very much, Andy. Andy's about to be relieved from his pit lane duties for his stint once again by Rob Lewis. Been joined in the combox once again by Mr. Andrew Mather, who I imagine I've asked the first question. Looks like you've been rather enjoying your first experience of C1 24 hours.
Absolutely loving it. I already knew that this was a great paddock from times I spent in it before a few years ago, but to see how it's developed, to see how it's come on since the last time I was in a C1 paddock, and combined with this being a 24-hour, it's got that great 24-hour spirit. I've seen in other places, but yeah, this has been
Can't disagree, and I'm sure you've seen if you've gone down the pit lane as well. We talked about it earlier on, the fact that it's only even just into the first few minutes of the race, the music was on, food was already being cooked, people are starting to really have a laugh and enjoy themselves. Yeah. It is one of those 24-hour races where it is rather unique, where kind of you get other 24-hour races where you can talk about Le Mans, your Daytona, Nürburgring 24 hours is on this weekend, and with Nürburgring you probably get a little bit of a mix of kind of those who are enthusiasts and those who are the proper serious works teams, and with those 24-hour races, they're all going to do. We love Le Mans, we love Daytona, we love Nürburgring, Spa, that sort of stuff. But there's always sometimes it's always because it's all professional that some of the teams don't often get a proper chance in between races, in between stints to they're all very focused and very serious and that sort of things. Now of course some teams are taking this very seriously and want to obviously do well and try and win the race and play the right strategy. But it's like from the outset there's a really nice, positive, happy, smiling, laughing vibe. everyone's all plenty of camaraderie. Just the whole purpose of the event. It's not just put on a great race, but it's also just have a great weekend and have a good time. And it really has that fantastic feel to it. And it just feels different to other 24-hour races and other endurance races, either higher up the echelons of motorsport or on the same level. It has that really unique feel to it that I don't think many other races can really replicate or get close to.
And I think James Matthews' stint is a great example of that. So I actually know James from outside of racing and through 9-to-5 work.
Right.
You know, James, I hope he doesn't mind saying this, he's not a professional racing driver. Monday to Friday, he's a very good driver, as we've clearly seen, but he works at Jaguar Land Rover. He's an engineer at JLR.
Yeah.
And this race and this platform gives drivers such as James, who clearly can pedal, we've seen that for the last 2.5 hours, to come race here with the Motorsport, race on the Grand Prix circuit, and have a heck of a good time. You can see the smile on his face. The smile is probably why the tyres is just worn out. But it's been a superb race so far, and I get the feeling it's only just beginning. Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, if you watch his back, the stint that he did, I'm sure he'll have a smile on his face as wide and everything as well, because the battles that were going on the front, not just there, but he'll be loving the battles that was going on behind for like 10th, 11th place downwards, and the 20th places. And we said it on comms with Rob, it feels like it's one of those races, and I love it when you get these kind of championships in any level of motorsport, where there's such a level of competition, such a wide variety of different mix, that you just have that sense that no matter where you are in the field, you always have someone to race with. It's 1 car, 3 cars, 7 cars, or a big 10-car group, or half the field. If you've got there's always somebody who will be around or on your skill level to quite match you. I'm always a bit distracted because that's a fantastic shot to show you just how fantastic this. There's another way to describe it. It's a beautiful, perfect golden sunset that's coming down there as the shadows continue to lengthen. You start to get towards one of the best points for endurance racing for me, which is Rob loves as well. It's the twilight into the darkness, and you start to get towards the night time, of course. And again, I have to agree, it's a shame that we have to kind of stop before we behind the car in case of going forwards. But of course, you'll be able to experience watching the light fading going through as we go towards the end of this part of the light through coverage. But yeah, just the whole atmosphere of this race, the whole attitude of everyone in terms of enjoying it, having fun, making it a really fantastic, feel-good party atmosphere and party vibe all the way through in this race. It's just something that I think many people have to come and experience. It's absolutely magnificent.
I'm going to join that club as well. This is always one of my favourite points of the 24-hour race.
Yeah.
It's got a very unique atmosphere of the track conditions are changing, so that's giving a chance to the drivers. You've got the paddock feeling. I always remember when I first went to Le Mans in 2015, you could smell the food being cooked over the circuit. That wonderful feel. This is the point for me in any 24-hour race. As the sun starts to go down, so the track conditions start to change, and how a team and a set of drivers respond to that. This is where the race is starting.
Yeah.
We've had the opening salvo, we've had the first round of pit stops, we know which cars are running quick at this stage of the race. Now it's about can we continue to into the night time and really start to get the lap times down as the temperatures start to drop. And the level of work that the cars will be having to do will lessen as those temperatures drop.
You're absolutely right in terms of we've had that first kind of opening salvo, the first two and a bit hours of that close racing. Now this first set of pit stops is done. Now we get to see how the pack is shaken out, and kind of how this race is going to play out in many cases. It's quite interesting looking at it, because looking at now these first set of pit stops looks like just about everyone's made at least their scheduled first stop, which is excellent to see. Now we've got that order coming through. We give you a bit of an idea of where we are with it then. So we've got Trojan Motorsport, after all those pit stops, lead the way with car 421. Their gap at the moment, even after all those pit stops, is only 0.4 of a second from Phil House in JW Bird Motorsport car 347. It's the BBC Motorsport now with Silverstone Grand Prix at the wheel. Watch out for him in this little circuit, using all the tools, tricks and tools of the trade which both Jane Edwards and Josh Cook have bestowed upon him, giving him plenty of driver coaching. They'll be pleased to know he's up in third place. He's taken over now the third place car. In fact, here is the top two, and I suspect that was possibly a bit of a signal there from Jonathan Mondays into Philip House. Come on, don't fight me. Let's go. Let's see if we can possibly try and work together. Phil House isn't listening to that at all. He's going diving up the inside into Stowe corner, thinking that was a signal saying, right, come on then, if you're going to get past, make it happen. And so Phil House was like, if you can just open the door up the inside of Stowe, I'm going to take it all day long. And what's going to be key is, if these two start fighting, if the harder they fight each other, the easier it's going to be for Silverstone Rubio, who is just there, flashed in the background in the black, turquoise and white machine, he's just going to be, for him, start to close back in. So he needs to have to do what JW Bird was doing with Scuderia Polo Rosso last time in the first part of the race, and try and bring Trojan Motorsport with them as their drafting partner. Either that, or they've got to try and work to see if they can do something. But look, you can see the signal. He was actually signalling to Jonathan Wayne, saying, look, come on, go with me. Let's see if we can pull away here, because they'll know how good BBC tuning is, particularly with one of the trio that won this race in March a couple of months ago. He knows this, but as that happens, that lead gap is not going to work too much, because safety car has been deployed. Now, for initially, truthfully, we don't know exactly what for, because we haven't seen it come up on the cameras yet. We might get an idea possibly from one of our track cameras if they can spot something, or possibly from pit lane. But the Silverlake Citroen DS3 safety car has gone out to go pick up the leaders. Jonathan Monday 421. This will bunch up everyone back together once again. Usually, if something's happened with a car, there's a game I like to play which is called Spot the Car, that goes tumbling down the timing screen. In terms of having stopped, if a car has stopped on the timing screen, if you're watching on TSL timing, there'll be a little yellow exclamation mark. There'll be an exclamation mark and a yellow triangle. There is one for car 506. That's the car right at the back of the field. That's the car which was the Patrick Watts racing car, which got called up in an incident earlier on. That's with Robinson at the wheel at the moment in time, so I'm not sure if that's the car that's had the issue which is possibly causing the safety car. Again, we haven't seen it on cameras just yet, and the only car we can see that has been shown as being stopped on circuit that's missing is 506, so we have to presume at this point in time, at the moment, initially, that's the cause. We did have a safety car on for debris on track.
We did.
However, again, either that debris has been quickly being picked up, or it is for the 506 car that has indeed stopped. And that car was a bit further down anyway, because it had the issues when it had the incident, and then Oliver Cotton was at the wheel. That car was brought back to pit lane. They've obviously tried to fix that car, and then obviously, and by the looks of it, if it is involved, it's had some other issues on top of that as well.
Yeah, it was the Dark and Taylor car that lost the bumper on lap 1 of the race that brought the first safety car out.
And they have replaced it. As we saw on camera, and it has got a full quota of body panels once again, which is quite nice to see. So 10. How have we got now? This is now. We've still got another 45 minutes or so until we conclude this first part of the live stream coverage for the 2023 Silverlake C1 Racing Club. Again, we are taking the notion that it's the 506 Patrick Watts racing car that has hit trouble, that has stopped on circuit somewhere. Exactly where, if it has, we do not know. But at this point in time, we actually get a note from our producer in the words quite simply, no idea what the cause is, or where the cause is, if we knew what it was. So the pack going around. Now that we've had that first shake out of pit stops, it actually gives us a proper chance to have a quick wrap of the top 10. Whilst that's happening, in the pit lane has come the 355 Emax Motorsport car from 11th place. So the 355 car, there it is on screen. 355 that's got Andy Steele at the wheel, showing that Carl Grego is under Marrett and Ryan Bentley who started that car first off. So either that's for an issue, or they're taking advantage of a second pit stop here to try and make a quick refuel, or possibly change tyres or something, and lose minimal time underneath this safety car, which is quite advantageous, I'm sure, for them, given they're running in 11th place and want to make and maximise that amount of potential that they have right there. So the top 10 that sits right then underneath the safety car then, after the first set of pit stops has all been shaken out, it's JW Bird Motorsport that leads them, and Philip House at the wheel. They lead ahead of Trojan Motorsport, Polson. So it's the top two cars that started the race on the front row, but now in reverse order. It's now JW Bird ahead of Trojan Motorsport in second place. Jonathan Monday now at the wheel of 421. BBC Motorsport, it's Rob Smith has handed the car over to March race winner here a couple of months ago, Sylvain Rubio, as part of that three team with Jen Edwards and Josh Cook. Fourth at the moment, actually in a rather silent but rather impressive effort, despite losing the front rear bumper. Dark and Taylor up in fourth position, although that said, they have come into. They haven't. 100%, but Dark and Taylor up into fourth place. I'd be intrigued to know if they have actually made a scheduled stop, because I don't think they would have come in. I don't think they came in when the rear bumper came off.
They
did
put fuel in it.
And they did.
Then they took it inside the garage to put the bumper back on.
Right, okay, so that car's risen. For that to happen, that's actually quite impressive, actually. So they've made quite a lot of progress. So they've still got to make a scheduled stop, an actual proper full stop by the looks of it. So that's fourth place moment for Max Maxted at the wheel of that car, Dark and Taylor. Stuart Ratcliffe is in the leading Emax Motorsport 346 car. That's the car with the Littles and also that's Max Finn that started that race. It's then in 6th position, one of the early front-running contenders, Scuderia Polo Rosso, and that car is in 6th position with Frank Clayton at the wheel. 7th place for AB Motorsports 394, which is the AB Motorsport car with Stuart Simmons at the wheel. 8th place Auto Farm, that's been making some steady progress early on in the first stint in the hands of Anthony Wilds. Now that car is up into 8th place after pit stops, and that car is currently driven by Max Watt, so that car is now to 8th place. 9th place is the 398 car, which is Silverlake, the Silverlake car with Adam Preble at the wheel of that car, showing with Gary, Michael Harris and Chris Southcott. Gary Preble. And then rounding out the top 10 is the second of the AB Motorsport cars, that is ABC1, and that's got Cameron Hawes at the wheel as well. A couple more cars trickling into pit lane to make stops. I think that's the cars outside the top 30 by the looks of it, because no one else is showing us having a cog next to their team name other than the cars in the top 30. I think BPC Motorsport 409 are in the pit lane as well. Right, that confirms it then. The number 506 car, not having a great start for the 24 hours. It's been in the wars a couple of times now, and it looks like possibly, I wonder if that car stopped somewhere as a legacy of what happened, because maybe there's a legacy problem after the incident they had earlier on up at the complex. So, and I talked about this earlier on with Rob. It was one. Patrick Watts Racing. They're a very capable team, but they just don't get the rub of the green. They don't get the luck. They didn't get any luck last year in the last couple of races. I think it was their white car, the 506 car, that had problems mainly at the beginning last year. But then there was an incident with Amy Watts at the wheel in the closing stages, where they had an incident with another car, unfortunately, and it ended up with her car off in the gravel trap. And they're a capable team. They've done well in the past, but they just don't seem to get the luck in not this year. And it's again, I don't want to call it a curse, but they just don't seem to have the good fortune in this race to be able to kind of be up at the front and showing their true pace with the driver light that they have.
Well, they have got 2 bullets in the gun. They've got Morgan Short at the moment out there in the 507, which is currently in 25th place and only 1 lap off the overall lead. I'm curious to see what happens with any potential wave around, because the safety car has picked up the has-been racing at 339 in lifetime. That's the cause of the 1 minute 38 gap for that car up to the Emax Motorsports 355 ahead. It's just not been a year so far, and because it's again a single class field, prepared, that they're going to be able to work their way back up to a result that they would have been happy with at the start of the weekend.
Yeah, well, hopefully their fortune can only go up from here, particularly with the PWR car with Morgan. Was it Morgan Short you said was with that car? Because the trouble is, because they're both called M Short, they just try and work out exactly which of the 2 shorts it is, whether it's Morgan or Marcus, because they show up exactly the same on the timing screens. It almost looks as though that they haven't actually made the driver change, but of course I'm sure they would have done. But of course, with the same first name and Short as the surname, it makes it tricky to work out the 2. So they're currently sat, whichever Short it is at the wheel, is in 20th position at the moment in that PWR car, and is on around the likes of Rabsport Racing, Jolt Racing, Yanko, Netherlands, and Burt Power. All these teams that were around when they were battling in that opening stint with all these driver changes. That's what the teams work out with. Other teams that are making some steady progress, Chillystone with the Fighting Talk car, that's on the first front hit. That's up in 11th place at the moment. WRC Developments with CB Auto Services, Andy Mollison, who, given the fact he just done he did a 2-hour endurance race in the Supersport Endurance Cup earlier on in a Renault Clio, so more front-wheel drive action. He will have been suitably warmed up for his stint to get into the C1. Currently starting 12th place in car 318. 497 Indigo Motorsport with I think that's Alex McEwen, I think it is. I'll double check that. 2020. That's the 497 car. Yeah, Alex McEwen. He's showing that car with if I get Peter Cruikshank, Ross McEwen, and Stephen Gray. Different spelling of the surname McEwen. It's not exactly the same, so there's no relation, as far as I know. And on top of that, there's also Jelly Snake Racing with Liquid Molly Racing. That's usually a team which is not too bad in the mix. They're in 15th place as well. And also a couple of the cars a bit further down than I expected. The BH and BHSCK Motorsport cars. 17th and 18th car for their pit stops. Got some work to do to try and claw the way back up that order as well. And also on the comeback trail too is the other JW Bird car 449, which is Kieran Griffin at the wheel. and that's in 20th place at the moment around some other cars, and they try to come away back up the order as well. I suspect my time in the commentary box is just about almost up. I'll be heading back to Andy McEwen, of course, who will be able to rest his legs after his stint in the pit lane. But again, once again, what's the may as well, Andrew, I commend you for your great work throughout today in the sport race and indeed so far in the 24 hours. I've no doubt that will continue. And I'm certain that you and Andy will have, once race gets back underway, given how exciting it has been, a rather enjoyable sort of roughly 35 minutes or so until we come off full comms, and I trust that it will be just as entertaining, hopefully, as once the safety car gets underway, as me and Rob had earlier on.
Absolutely. So once again, Scott for having me down. Great race, great event so far. Scott's going to hop off, and Andy McEwen will be rejoining in a short moment's time. As
he throws down his entry list, that's the signal for me to leave, to at least go and take a break. So continue some duties in pit lane, saying, "Oh, you've had enough time sitting down. Time to get back up and get out there." So, right, for at least on this broadcast, my voice will reappear tomorrow once the Sunday stream starts on. But for those, just a reminder who are watching the stream, when we finish up at 9 o'clock, we are going to be switching the feed to the circuit comms, which is going to be obviously turned down for the circuit, but for the purposes of any radio listeners and also for us, we'll have the dulcet tones of the one and only Mr. Paul Trustwell, who will drop in and out, and he did last year, to provide some on and off commentary alongside the locked camera shots that we'll have from 9 o'clock onwards until 9 o'clock tonight until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. We'll go back to full comms with Andy, Andrew, myself, and Rob, of course. So enjoy the next sort of 30-35 minutes of the full coverage until we get to 9 o'clock. And you'll hear from me once again, and I'm sure from Rob at the end when he's going to sign off in the mix. And it's back to, once again, Andrew Mather, and in a second or so, Andrew McEwen back on the microphone to take you through the last part of our full commentary and cameras before we sign off for the evening at 9 o'clock. So until then, I shall depart, and back to Andrew McEwen in a few seconds' time.
Once again, Scott, keep comments coming in as well. Hello to Jamie. A few kind words there, Jamie. As part of one of the many teams in the Supersport Endurance Cup earlier, which had a fantastic race, really entertaining 2-hour race. If you missed that earlier, you will be able to watch that back at your leisure here on the Brscc YouTube channel. Hello to Andy as well, cheering on the 355 of Andy Steele, who, indeed, absolutely tremendous stint for the 355. A lot of progress made in the first 3 hours of this race. I am also going to give a little mention to the 5-2-1 today. Race so far, also 5-2. Mikey Wasty, Dave Ward, Wilds. Was in the car. Started 33rd. To 8th place. Indeed. Safety car lights are out, which would indicate indeed that it is coming into pit lane, and we are ready to go back to green, back to racing here at Silverstone Grand Prix circuit. Just ticked into the 4th hour of the race, and we're back underway once again. The car at the head of the field is the 16th place, has been racing 339, so we are going to have a bit of a jumbled order here, as through go the BH Motorsports and CKC Motorsport, both of their cars actually, the 504 and the 503, both gaining a position straight away there. On has been racing. Andy McEwen rejoins me here in the commentary box, right at cue, as we go back to green. Interesting phase of the race here, I think, because we've almost got like two divisions of the field now. We've got those 15 cars that are effectively on the lead lap still, covered by 23 seconds, and then everybody else who, after that safety car period, have now got at least 1 lap to find. Yeah, and that is where it comes down to pot luck, really. Through the first couple of hours of the race, if a safety car comes out, there's a good chance they'll catch the race leader. Once we start getting into cycles of pit stops, we saw how spread out that pit sequence was over about 10-12 laps or so, if not more. Very difficult for race control to be able to get the safety car out at the right point. So it is pure luck whether you end up the right side of that or the wrong side of that, and it's really shaken up the order. There are cars now inside the top 10 that were barely inside the top 20 when I was last in the commentary box an hour and a half or so ago, so really changes the complexion of the race. I'll tell you what though, I do love that stint down in the pit lane. I did it the same last year as well, when you have that first round of pit stops, because it's a real learning experience for the teams. They all are wondering, how long can we go on fuel? How are the tyres going to look? do we need to make any adjustments to the car? The little adjustments you can make, things like tyre pressures and whatnot. And the big talking point, as you probably gathered, is tyres. Most teams came into this race expecting to be able to go 2 full stints on fuel with 1 set of tyres. They are realising very quickly, I think that's going to be very difficult to do, at least during the day, perhaps during the night. Really, the only 2 leading teams that I saw change tyres were the 347 car, leading the race, and the 310 Scuderia Polo Rosso. All of the other lead lap cars that I know of did not opt to change tyres. Now, of course, they had quicker pit stops, although it didn't really slow JW Bird down much. They retained the race lead. But they are really now questioning whether those tyres will last anything more than about 90 minutes or so. The tyres that came off the JW Bird car were down to the canvas already on the left front corner, and that was after just 50 laps. So there is a lot of questioning about tyre management out there. Through the night it might get easier, but most definitely that has caught people out. This abrasive surface, the warmer tyre, the track temperatures, and it's created a bit of a guessing game on that subject.
As indeed. So the stages after this restart, I can see the BH Motorsport team SCK Motorsport guys both working together now. That's got to be the aim, the objective for them. Bump draft each other to try and get at the road and cut back this lap that they have lost. There is the Has-Been Racing machine side by side with the 449 of JW Bird Motorsport. That is for position. It's for 19th spot. So through there in the 449 goes Kieran Griffin. Setting about trying to get some more positions as well. Next to Tigers is the Silverlake 2 car, the 458, directly ahead, currently piloted by Michael Chapman.
And we've also had a lead change because through now in the Trojan Motorsport car has gone Jonathan Munday ahead of Phil House in the JW Bird Motorsport machine. So there they come, look, the fluorescent yellow car, that is Trojan Motorsport ahead now of JW Bird, and BPC Motorsport, the turquoise car, getting chopped off well and truly through Maggotts Beckett. That is the car in 3rd place, Sylvain Rubio at the wheel. So they are your top 3 cars who now will be together on track, I think, once Sylvain negotiates that lapped car. And they're immediately embroiled in traffic, but significant there that Monday's been able to get the lead. And now it's a very different challenge, isn't it? In the early stages when we had a safety car restart, you'd work together at the front to try and build a gap. It's going to be almost impossible to do that through traffic. So now I think it's almost worth just going out in front and going it alone. If you think you can build a bit of a lead, if you think it's worth building a bit of a lead, perhaps it's worth just trying to do that rather than working with other specific cars, because to coordinate that through traffic is not impossible.
Absolutely agree. You see the Dark and Taylor 312 continuing some good progress. After a bit of a frantic top that we saw earlier, and you've got to give it to them. They were there in 4th place, so clearly a lot of pace in that car. It's Anthony Paxton driving for them at the moment. Also out there still, 501 SEM Racing. Saw that car in a bit of bother in the stages of this race. It's good to see it back into full health.
Yeah, so Trojan continuing to charge their way through traffic here. And you can see JW Bird staying with them. In fact, the top 3 staying pretty well together as they scythe through this first little knot of traffic. Yeah, I was down there at the Dark and Taylor garage when they brought that car in. That was one of the most manic few minutes I think I've ever experienced in a pit lane. I don't think anyone quite knew the process with regards to changing the bumper. When do you put the fuel in? When do you look at the tyres? When can you touch the car? When can't you touch the car to repair the bumper? They had to put it into the garage, and I don't think they fully knew that. So yeah, for them to still be up there in contention is pretty impressive. And you can see that now, well, the lapped car there almost defending from them into Brooklands. And this is of course the other tricky thing about these long distance races, especially when the cars are all identical. It's not always immediately obvious if you are being lapped that you are being lapped. You don't always know exactly who it is that you're racing against, especially when you've got this slightly confusing situation where half the field have now been put a lap down unexpectedly. So you do get drivers racing against cars just because they were racing them in the previous stint. It doesn't necessarily mean they still are.
And it's that adage of endurance racing that where sometimes you may have a blue flag, it's not quite the same as, say, a sprint race or top of Formula 1. It is on the driver on the lead lap, it's their responsibility to get by safely. You can't just go barging through and making contact and saying, well, you're a back marker, get out of my way. It is the responsibility of the faster driver to make the move safely, as if it was full position.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can save your race by staying on the lead lap. So if you're about to go a lap down and you hang on for a lap or so and catch a safety car, that can absolutely transform your 24 hours. So, okay, you don't really want to see people actively defending if they're much slower than the leader, but if you're on comparable pace, then absolutely you don't have to pull out of the way and let them through. So, yeah, it's, again, all these things that the drivers have to kind of figure out on the go, and it's not all that easy to do, and they don't have any direct contact with the teams, and any sort of coordination with the team, almost impossible to achieve, really. Phil House back on the tail now of Jonathan Munday, so these top two cars closing back together. It looked initially as though Jonathan might have the pace to escape, but as I said, the fact that they're immediately sort of getting stuck into the back markers means that it's very hard to get into a rhythm. And many of these drivers pretty fresh into the car as well. They'd like a nice lengthy green flag run just to get into their routine. That's not going to be an opportunity afforded to them, really. There's Maxted around the outside, trying to go around the outside of the 427 to put a lap on it. That's the car in fourth place. But, yeah, interesting situation here then, with, as we said, 15 cars on the lead lap. Sort of helps us in a way to know who to focus on. You know, we're narrowing down almost with every hour the potential contenders. I think to say that those who are trapped the lap down now can't get back into contention later on, but it's going to be an uphill struggle for sure.
The response from Munday and House has been very, very good. They're now into the 301s. They're matching the pace of Rubio there in third. Also going quite quickly. Saw them at the front of the order after the safety car. It was about 10 minutes ago. The two SKC and BH Motorsport cars. They're both in the 3-minute 2, so they are progressing up the road. But it's going to be a long, long way back for them. We've just got to keep plugging away at that one. A couple of changes for position. The important developments have taken 20 bit points away from the Motorsport. It's the 453. We're past the 345. Fighting the torch have also got up to 9th place. That's pace. One Silverlake and Brscc development. Auto Services have swapped positions as well. 11 and development have gained 13th spot off of Indigo Motorsport.
Yeah, lots of changes of position there, weren't they? Just around the back end of the top 10 and beyond, and that's because that's kind of the second pack. You've got the leading group that were somewhere towards the front of the safety car queue, and then that group all quite close together, but a lot further back down the order. There goes Trojan up the inside. They had a very close moment just now with that, I think it was like 507 that they were putting a lap on, almost making contact as they went through Brooklands corner, spin, and that is 527, I think, at Cops corner. Yeah, so the Red Sky car then going around, and well, Red Sky at night, Shepherd's Delight, a spin at Cops corner, not that team's delight, that's for sure. They were looking to stay out of the barriers there, and very high-speed corner, as I said, flat out in theory in these cars is Cops corner, maybe a comfort lift as you turn in. That was a scary moment, not the first car we've seen going around there. It shows, I suppose, just how close to not being flat out perhaps that corner really is.
It's been a really tough race for them. They started on the 4th row of the grid, down outside the top 40 at the moment, and that won't help them. Shadows lengthening now. You can see a few of the cars have elected to put headlights on. Oh, and the 4th row. The headlights are not helping the 437 there, and that's going to graze the wall. Now, what happened there? Now, is that a mechanical failure? Oh, now you see the front wheels dig in. That could be a safety car. The BPC tuning 437 off the road. That looked very, very strange from our camera angle, whether it was a front right problem or just a bit of lift-off oversteer.
It looked like the latter, I think. It just looked like the rear broke loose and around it went, but very lucky not to make more significant contact with the barriers there, really. It is the moment Claire Norman, no sorry it's not, it is Gareth Humphries in the BBC tuning car at the moment, who had that big moment. But yeah, I did look as though the rear end tried to overtake the front there, as they went through the right-hander at Beckett's, which, you know, the track temperature is now starting to dip. It's getting noticeably chillier out there, and so not that long after a safety car restart, perhaps that left rear not quite as warm and toasty as it once was. 5:01, by the way, being given a 3-minute stop-go penalty, so that is SEM Racing, and not being disclosed to us what that penalty's for. We'll try and find out, but they're down in 49th place after already having been in the gravel once up at Beckett's corner, and now they're getting given a 3-minute stop-go penalty just to make their evening even better.
Bird Motorsport 347 past another back mark, and that's them going past the Watts Racing 507. Short drive back at the moment is less than a second between Monday and House at the front of the field. Out comes the JCB, that is going to be for the recovery down at Beckett's. But BPC Motorsport, Sylvain Rubio pushing on still, was down into the 3-minute zeros not that long ago, and safety car has been deployed for the recovery. Understandable, I think, given how that car ended up in the gravel trap. If it can happen once, it can happen again. It needs recovery vehicles out of the circuit, so absolutely understandable that the safety car has to be deployed once again. So we ran for, what was that, about 14 minutes since the green flag dropped.
Yeah, it wasn't very long, was it? And the 437 car bringing this one out. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, do we have a situation here where we've got cars ahead of the leader, technically on the back of the lead lap? Or are we saying that 16th on back are fully a lap down?
Yeah, I would say yes. 16th down are fully a lap down.
Right. So even if we pick up the leader here, this isn't going to benefit them. They haven't sort of, they don't get a chance to buy that lap back here, we don't think. So, right, okay. It's a shame for them, because this could have been a stroke of luck if that had been the case. But especially because the safety car appears to be specifically waiting, is it, for the race leader? Well, no, actually, the race leader is on the hanger straight, and the safety car now has ambled out onto the circuit. So the first car it catches.
So I think the unfortunate thing is it may well catch the two, looking at our driver tracker, I think it's going to catch the 506 first, that being the Patrick Watts racing machine that caused the last safety car, so that they're back out. But after that, I think it's then going to catch the same two Sierra Charlie Kappa Motorsport cars that were picked up last time. So it's going to reset the work that they'd done in the last 14-15 minutes. There they are.
So they are technically on the lead.
Actually, yes, you're right. They are on the lead lap. They're on it on our time screen for a very short period, because they're only about 10 seconds ahead of the lead.
Yeah, so that's where they would look for the safety car to pick up the leader, because then they get their lap back, which is what I was hoping might happen for their sake, but it's not going to happen by the look of it. So, because you're right, they are going to be amongst the first cars to come in behind the safety car. Like you said, 506 first, but they are multiple laps down, and then it will be 503 and 504. So they come across the line now. They'll exit Copse. They'll be greeted very shortly by the safety car, and look at the gap that they pulled. I mean, they've done a really good job there, like you said, because they had good track position, I guess, compared to the outright race leaders. And there is the outright race leader, so you can see that was about a 15-second advantage, so they were about 2 minutes 45 behind the race leader, but at least on the lead lap. And yeah, a bit of a shame that we couldn't have got the leader picked up, but that is the way it goes. 437 won't take too long to get going again, I don't think, or at least get out of the gravel, and that car will be released out into the fray once more, with hopefully not much damage. Perhaps a new wing mirror needed, or a wing mirror needing to be folded back out again, but that could have been a much bigger impact than it was.
Yeah, it's well held in a way by the driver in the 437. It's able for it to just be a glancing blow with the wall on driver's right. There is the safety car, has now picked up the 503 and the 504. And this will be a frustrating moment, I think, for SCK, because their two drivers had been working very nicely together, but every grey cloud has a silver lining and all of that. They've shown they can do it once.
Yes.
They'll try and do it again and hope for a bit more green running to then be able to properly break away and work about getting their lap back.
Yeah, because then all they need is a safety car that does pick up the lead, or at least comes out behind them on track, and they can get back round. Or if they can stretch their next pit stop as long as they can, you never know, the leaders might come in, they can go an extra few laps. In that few laps, a safety car could come out as well. But their race very much hinging now around safety cars, really. They had a safety car ruin their race in some ways, and they'll be reliant on another one, I think, to salvage it again. As you can see, there's only 4 cars between themselves and the leader now. So that's the other thing, isn't it, that plays against them. The leaders are much further up the queue now. They're not going to get as held up in traffic. Harder, therefore, to build that margin up. We know how quick Trojan and JW Bird have been so far in this race. So that's a little bit of a shame for them, but as I say, you need an awful lot of luck in this business. And with still 20 hours, 41 minutes to go, there's a lot that can still play out. We've seen how much can play out in the opening number of hours in this race, and there's still an awful lot more that can happen. You see the rest of the top 10 sort of filtering through here as well. In amongst the traffic, they'd also started to get themselves some decent track position. So 310 car going through there in 5th, and then there 394 Stuart Simmons now, another former MX5 front runner. Now in the first of the 2 AB Motorsport cars, AB have somehow got both of their cars in the top 10. I don't quite know how Cameron Hawes is in 9th place. I'm sure he'll tell me it's because he's an incredibly talented driver. I'm sure that's part of the truth, but I also reckon they got a bit lucky on the safety cars. And so both of their cars inside the top 10 now. And so is the Auto Farm car. Now, that was one of the... I really wanted to try and catch up, actually, with Anthony Wiles. Never got the chance to, after his demon stint there, to drag that car up from outside the top 30 on the grid. And he's got his reward because he got himself just the right side of that safety car coming out, so that now that car is well established as a top 10 contender.
Absolutely. They'll take homage livery to Ford Focus World Rally Programme from the early 2000s. Safety car is going to be in, so once again a quite short safety car period. Great work from the marshals and race control once again, and away we go. Yeah, I was going to take a note on that there was quite a bit of panel damage to the left-hand side of the Patrick Watts Racing 506 machine. Away go the SCK cars once again to resume what they were doing before the safety car, which is trying to push both their cars, their cohorts with BH Motorsports, of course, as well. They will try to get back into those 302s, maybe those 301s as well, see if their efforts can be rewarded, properly get onto the back of the lead lap train. Technically, they are still on the lead lap, but the leaders are only 6 or 7 cars in the train behind them.
The bigger the gap they can pull, the more chance there is that they will end up being the right side of the safety car as and when it next comes out. That Patrick Watts racing car is the car that Oliver Cotton dinged, of course, earlier on, so that's where that damage came from. There is a joke in there about touring car drivers and panel bashers, but I won't go there. Cotton, I'm sure, enjoyed his first stint of racing a C1, but the SCK teammates here working together, and they've really got to put all thoughts of fuel mileage or tyre management well out of their minds now. They've just got to go pedal to the metal and, as you said, try to pull this gap. Now, Dark and Taylor have pitted as the safety car came in. This was the 4th place car, number 312. Why have they pitted? Because it's well too early for a scheduled stop, and it's odd that they would do it as the safety car came in as opposed to when it came out, so that is an interesting one.
It is. That is the car that we saw in the pits when it had its bumper change. That's not about 2 hours to go. So that might be... I agree, I don't understand why they haven't decided to pit under the safety car and take the advantage there. We do know that car is off schedule 23. That's a problem.
If it was 2 hours, that's still a bit short, though, for my opinion. They should be able to go a little bit longer, although a lot of teams saying the fuel mileage isn't as good this year, and that is the warmer temperature, I think, playing its part. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Perhaps Rob Lewis can do some digging down there and clear that one up for us.
There's the 373, one of the cars that we saw involved in the incidents through the loop earlier on in the race. So he's clearly been in the Midway Motorsport pit box for a bit of treatment. Application of engineering flowchart, as we say. The liberal use of the gaffer tape there. Basically, when I saw that car when it came in, and the whole left-hand side of bodywork, there was no real damage to the wheel, apart from a little bit of cutting on the tyre. You know, anything that was metal was fine, and it was a case of they needed to pull that plastic bumper ridge back and then kind of form a bit of a bumper in gaffer tape on that one, and also get the headlamp back in place. That was the major one, and they really had to do something to get that back under control. There is the 312 Dark Taylor car.
Looks like a scheduled stop, doesn't it?
It does.
Well, we've got Rob Lewis on the case. He's on his way down there, so we'll see what he can say. But perhaps you might be right, because the teams were struggling to go much beyond 2 hours, which is a lot less than they expected. But with the amount of safety car, I would have thought they could go longer. Anyway, they know what they're doing, I'm sure. We have had, when I first got down there were drivers coming in way too early, just because they'd agreed before the race that's how long their stint was going to be, and they hadn't taken into account the extra laps behind the safety car. So perhaps once he was in there, they decided to service him either way. Not entirely sure, but anyway, that will drop them down the order. Everybody else from 4th place on back picks up a place now, so Scuderia Polo Rosso creeping back towards the front. One thing that did intrigue me is that they lost a lot more time in their pit stop by changing tyres than JW Bird did, who came out still in the race lead. So maybe it wasn't quite as slick a pit stop, but they've sort of been left sort of digging themselves out of a hole now. They're still 13.5 seconds off the lead, just because of the amount of traffic they're surrounded by.
Yeah, they're in the picture at least. And I think from when you had the discussion with James Matthews, they're almost still in the fact-finding mission stage of the race, having made that decision to change the front tyres at their first pit stop. 451 of MLP development to the outside of the top teleport. 2.5 seconds behind. Very good. We've seen him out on circuit once. The Supersport Endurance Cup. Great racing this Renault Clio.
That always makes me nervous, and that's why, because the car on the outside of a 3-wide situation there at Club never knows that there are 2 cars to the inside, and there's always a bit of a squeeze that goes on. Luckily, major contact averted, and they're still 3-wide now going into Abbey Corner, but the amount of times I've seen a car get squeezed upon that sausage curve on the inside at Club, and it's ended up in a fairly sizable moment. Thankfully, that didn't happen on occasion, but I'm remembering now as the race goes on that you need to learn to pace yourself with things like that. You find yourself going ooh and ah at everything. It's just par for the course in C1 racing, really. You can fit a lot of these cars alongside each other on a track like Silverstone, and they will do exactly that. If you've got the run, you don't want to lift off the throttle. You don't want to lose that momentum, because it's all about momentum, especially around a track like this one. So, yeah, that's why you see them going for gaps that are only just big enough for them to squeeze through.
A couple of position changes. PWR have got past Aspen Racing for 21st position. So developments have also got the spot on that last lap. They're up to 24. That's the Aspen Racing on 4-3-2. To see the Dark and Taylor, that's really a perplexing one as to why they didn't come in and serve what I think is a scheduled pit stop under the safety car, because they've now dropped from they were up around 4th place, now 26th on our timing screens. They've lost a huge amount of time.
And it is the time more than the positions that is concerning, really. Behind a safety car, it's a free pit stop, you say, because you can back out of the pit lane, and in the 3 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever you've spent in the pit lane, you get straight back again. Whereas in the green flag conditions, of course, you don't. You've just lost that time. So still be more or less in contention, I guess, once it all cycles through. But yeah, intriguing that they did. My only suggestion I have for that is that maybe they noticed a problem on the car as we got towards the end of the safety car period, and they thought, no, we need to go and sort that. And it ended up being something or nothing. Oh, that's not something or nothing. That is...
That's Fighting Torque, not the 309.
It is, yes. So another car that's come a cropper down at Beckett. This is interesting as well, because the SCK cars are not making a break this time, are they?
Nope.
And they are about to be lapped, potentially, by the race leader. This could be a big moment in their race.
Could be indeed. Beyond track limits there. We'll want to be careful about that. For them at the moment is Richard Newman. Yeah, this could be a very, very key point of the race for both the 503 and the 504, because there is the 41 third in the train. And the race leader trying to put a lap on. There is second place. We also start to see at this time of the evening, Andy, the LED artistry coming out amongst the paddocks. Down the inside, there goes the 421, gets one of these two cars from the same team, and is now looking to make a break past the 504. So in fact the 504 and the 503 have changed positions, have they not?
Yes. Yeah, they have, you're right, 504 ahead now.
And it could also be, I think, quite a key spot for Trojan Motorsport, because if once they get through, they have got clear track ahead of them. They'll be able to see the true pace here in race conditions for the car that was the clear pole sitter 24 hours ago.
Well, yeah, that was one of the big talking points pre-race. Do they genuinely have a second lap in hand over the opposition? I don't think they do, but I think they might have a little chunk of that. But more than likely, they're taking things very easy in that first stint, just to try and see what the tyre situation was going to be like. That was a big talking point before the race as well, as teams were concerned, based on what they've seen here back at the start of the season, for the first round race of the Silverlake C1 Endurance Series. So to the front of the queue now, properly, goes the race leader. And of course that will be important for Trojan as well, to put those SCK cars a lap down. They know they're quick cars, they know that they are potential rivals in this race, and that's a big moment for them to be able to put them a lap down. Of course SCK now need to try and hang with Trojan. The slipstream might help them to do that, but that was, I can't help but feel that was a significant moment in this race for all concerned.
SCM Racing coming in, and just to note as well, super move is put in at Fuel Field corner by Paul Dickinson, so that's the Silverlake Racing 558 gaining position past Brewster there in the 503, side by side between the 330 and the 335. That is for position or not, I think it's a little bit further down the order. 335 Rapsport Racing machine. No, it was not for position, so that's Rapsport Racing in 28th place. That is the Silverlake Racing car. This guy gained another position in all of that. May have caught the attention of the race leader whilst doing that, but Paul Dickinson is absolutely flying at this stage of the race. Has gained 2 positions in the last 2 laps, 3 wide as they go into Vale. I think that was the JW Bird Motorsport second place car down the inside. Yes, it was, and somehow made it work. Somehow being the word, definitely. And then you've also got the no, that is not the BPC car. BPC have really been dropped down those top 2, actually, haven't they? 6 seconds or so further back. There is the BPC tuning car. They've got 10 seconds in hand then over Clayton in the Scuderia Polo Rosso. That was a very scary moment there for Jonathan Monday. I'm not sure he would have realised how close to disaster he was there necessarily, but Dickinson came steaming up the inside, and he might have the pace to go and just outright unlap himself here, really. That looks like one of the fastest cars on the track right now. It looked quick in the nighttime practice session last night as well, when stood trackside at Beckett. They were one of the cars that really did catch my eye. There goes 346 up the inside. Now this, some of this at least, is for position. 346 Emax Motorsport are battling, that is Stuart Ratcliffe, they're battling with Cameron Hawes for 7th place at the moment in the ABC car, ABC1 car even, and I think not far ahead of them is the WRC Developments number 18 of Andy Mollison, who's picked up 3 places on the previous lap, past that whole group. So Andy Mollison, another quick driver. His lap times aren't all that impressive because he's in traffic, but he's gaining track position like nobody's business. News on the Fighting Torque 309, it did get back pointing in the right direction. They lost at least 25 seconds, I reckon. Neil Chillystone is now in 14th position. 3.3 on your screen. It's the Scuderia Potenza car that we haven't talked too much about so far today. How are they getting on? 39th place inside the top 40. They are in a battle for position there, just behind BGD Motorsport, who similarly are not too far behind BPC Motorsport.
Down through Baggett's and Beckett's they head then, and well, unbelievably we're getting towards 9 o'clock in the evening now, which is when our full coverage around the circuit ceases. We can go off and soak up some of the atmosphere, but if you want to keep in touch with what's going on out on track, then be sure to stick around, because the stream will continue with a couple of locked off cameras and the excellent commentary services of Paul Truswell and the gang who are covering the circuit commentary. It will be on Facebook, I believe, as part 2 of the C1 stream, and we're getting to a very interesting part of the race where we're really narrowing down the contenders now. Seems daft to say when we are, as the timing screen helpfully points out, only 14% of the way through this race, but it is still a significant moment in this race for sure, with Trojan Motorsport looking to try and establish themselves out in front. Before we go off and enjoy our evening festivities, Andrew, first of all, huge thank you for joining us. Been great to have you as part of the team.
Gotcha.
I think I know the answer to this question, but have you enjoyed part 1 of your C124 experience?
It's been superb, not just the what we've seen in the last 3 and a bit hours, going on 4 hours now, but the support races that we had earlier today, absolutely fantastic. Great feel here in the paddock. Great to be back in the Brscc paddock. Had the joys of being in one, and yeah, thank you to yourself for the help. Today it's been great, and we'll do it all again tomorrow.
Can't wait. We'll be back just around 9 o'clock, I think, in the morning tomorrow to take you right the way through to the flag. Will it still be Trojan Motorsport, I wonder, who we're talking about at the front? I remember asking that question at about 11 o'clock at night, it was last year. And no, when we turned up the next morning, it was like a completely different race. All of the cars that we were talking about for the first 5 hours at the front were nowhere near the front, because they'd all had problems in the night. Strange things happen in the night in 24-hour racing, and it's always the case that the story looks very different when we return for part 2 of the race. To Brooklyn's Trojan about to be unlapped here, aren't they, I think, by the Silverlake car. Not quite that time. But that was the first serious look, really, for them to try and get back onto the lead lap. That's going to be a really, really important moment for them. So out of Luffield Corner comes Trojan Motorsport then. Myself, Andy McEwen, Andrew Mather and Scott Woodwist signing off from the commentary box. We're going to hand down to the pit lane, though, for a very quick word with Rob Lewis for his thoughts on what's been a fantastic first 3.5 hours of racing.
Now we go into the night for this C1 24 hours. Our thanks to the commentary team, Andy McEwen, Andy Mather, Scott Woodwist, myself, Robert Lewis. We're signing off for tonight, so this is part 1 of the 24-hour stream. So what you do now, get yourself onto part 2. We've locked a couple of the cameras on. We're still going to have the cameras rolling, and we will have the circuit commentary on in the background, where Paul Truswell is doing as usual. He's staying up for the whole 24-hour race, and he will be commentating via the circuit comms, giving you updates, and we will be back tomorrow morning for part 3 of the C1 24 hours. Don't go anywhere. 9 o'clock, part 3 on the Brscc YouTube channel. From me, Rob Lewis, not quite from them. They've got some racing to do. It's good night.
So, just to let you know, if you are still listening on 87.7, don't turn the radio off through the night, because I am going to be giving you updates throughout the night and giving you my spin on activities as they go on. I'll try and keep it to the truth, the whole truth, and we'll see how we get on then. So we are currently running 3 hours and 40 minutes into the race, and Jonathan Munday still in the lead, but by less than a second, just 0.692 of a second clear of the JW Bird Motorsport entry of Philip House, which is in second place. And then in third place is Sylvain Rubio, who slipped back a little bit. His lap time's not quite up to the pace that are being set by John Munday and Philip House. 3 minutes 0, 3 minutes 0 from those two, whereas Sylvain Rubio 3 minutes 2.5. So he's dropping away a little bit. 11 seconds he is adrift of Philip House. But Frank Claydon in the Scuderia Polo Rosso car is in fourth place. And his lap time is 3 minutes 3.234. He is a further 11 seconds behind Sylvain Rubio in the BPC car, 375. So 375 in third, 310 in fourth. In fifth place is 394 Stuart Simmons, the AB Motorsport car. He is 4 seconds behind and closing. So look out for Stuart Simmons in 394, closing in on Frank Hayden, the 310. Scuderia Polo Rosso car, and then it's Andy Mollison in 318, the WRC Developments car. He is a further 1.5 seconds behind Stuart Simmons, and then it's young Max Watt in the Auto Farm car, 521, which has been staying out of the trouble and moving gently into contention, a further 7 seconds behind. But Max has Cameron Hawes right on his tail in the ABC1 entered car. That's car number 352, and Cameron Hawes sharing with Luke Puddle and Tim Dorr, and is the third driver in that car. So Cameron going very nicely indeed. Last lap 3 minutes 3.996, so he's not going quite as quickly as Max Watt, but Luke Haberman, who's the next one up, 451 in 9th place. In 10th place is 346 Stuart Ratcliffe, and then it's Adam Preble in the Silverlake car, 398. That's the top 10, top 11 counting Adam Preble, as he's in 11th place. Neil Savage is 12th in car 495, the Jelly Snake Racing car, and then 13th is 309 Neil Chelistone in the Fighting Torque car. Jonathan Munday currently working his 26th lap. Philip House on his 21st lap. Previous stints or anything to go by, they should be capable of doing something like 40 or 40. Well, in the case of the 421 car, that did 44 laps on its earlier stint. The 347 car did 49 laps on its earlier stint. 375 did 48 laps on its previous stint, and so we're about halfway, a little bit over halfway through this stint, and we'll see how the many laps they actually end up doing. But it was the cars that went the furthest, and although they had to stop under green conditions, It's the cars that went the furthest and had the relatively short pit stop compared to those who stopped earlier on during the safety car period. So it depends a little bit when the safety car happens, whether it is a good thing to pit or not, and how much fuel you can get into the car. And that gives you the information as to whether or not you should be contemplating a pit stop at the moment. Still quite remarkable, we've got all 51 cars running because Orlando Lindsay has recovered in the Patrick Watts car and is continuing on round. So here we are, 3 3/4 hours into the race, still with a full complement of 51 cars. Official night time has been declared, and the light is beginning to go, I have to say. So lights have to be on, and presumably drivers who didn't qualify for nighttime driving are not allowed to drive. Now, I know both Marcus and Morgan Short qualified during the night, but I don't know if anybody else did from that car, because that car didn't do any night laps. But this is the 507 PWR car. So whether Marcus and Morgan are going to drive for the rest of tonight and then hand over to the other drivers tomorrow morning, we'll wait and see. It's Morgan at the Marcus at the wheel at the moment in 507, in 19th place overall, and he is 1 lap off the lead lap, as are 1, 2, 3, 4 cars ahead of him. Correction, 3 cars ahead of him. He's the 4th to be 1 lap behind. So he could dearly do with being back on the lead lap. But as I say, importantly, we still have the full complement of cars racing. 1 comes into the pits, that's the 537. Who makes his pit stop, and 537 is the BPC tuning car of James Webb into the pits. Where he has been for some 4 minutes now. Didn't see him come in, but it's a long-ish pit stop for James Webb. John Munday making his way down the Wellington Straight at the moment, heading down toward Brooklands. Still just enough light to pick them out, and Jonathan Munday has Philip House right in his wheel tracks once again. Philip House's car with the blue lips around the radiator and the blue line over the A-pillar and roof rails on the 421. And then we wait a short time before we get Sylvain Rubio going through in number 375. He's 11 seconds down. Now it's still 11.9 seconds behind, so he's lost a little bit more ground. And then the next one up will be Frank Claydon, who's a further 12 seconds behind in the Scuderia Polo Rosso car, which has now gone through. Andy Mollison and Stuart Simmons not far behind those two. A very close group of cars running together there. So still any one of the cars in that lead group, I would say in the top 11 really, potential winners of this. And potential podium finishers, you can probably take anyone from the top 20. couple of cars pulling into the pits. Car 497, the Indigo Motorsport car of... just trying to pick him out. In 14th place of Ross McEwen for the Indigo team. And Ross then making his second pit stop already. Is it Ross McEwen or is it Andy McEwen actually? 497 is Alex McEwen, isn't it? Yeah, my screen showing me Ross, but it's actually Alex McEwen who's into the pits. Out of 14th place, and then out of 26th place has come 335. That's the Rabsport car, and that's the second pit stop for 335. And another car going slowly down the pit lane at the moment. Missed the number. Comes up now is car number 356 for JW Bird. And that is one of the cars a bit further down than the 356. Paul Brown for so it's Paul Brown in the pits in car 356. He's a bit further down. Alex McEwen 497 back out again, having spent 8 minutes in the pit. Oh no, total of 3 minutes 52 in the pits on that stop. And 317 back out of the pits again in the hands of Jay Ayling. It's Jim Ayling who's back out on the circuit. So a few pit stops beginning to happen, and a personal best lap having been set there by Max Watt in the 521 Auto Farm car. Max having had a off during the unofficial test session on Friday morning, but now getting to grips with the circuit and doing his best of 3 minutes 1.400 on that last time around. And another 3 minute stop and go penalty for car 342, which is the SF racing car, and that is a car that's slightly better placed, as I remember. No, 342 actually is outside of the top 30. Just to recapture that one, 342 is in 41st place. The SF racing car currently with John Wall driving, and that's another car in the pits at the moment. It's actually them taking their 3 minute penalty already.